The story takes place at dusk, with a woman running away from a creepy guy who keeps saying he would not hurt her. She reaches a dead end, and the man stabs her mercilessly. Blood pours out of her chest and her wig falls off, revealing that she was actually a man. The attacker fumes at the discovery and strikes again, spilling red, hot blood all over the ground. Saku wakes up, remembering the blood all over his body. He moves around casually, listening to the news that the body found was that of a serial attacker with more than 10 victims. The targets were always young women. The day moves forward with talk about a graduation trip. The receptionist tells Saku that he should enjoy his last bit of freedom before entering company life. Saku says he read some reviews online about a cafe he wants to visit, but he is not sure where it is. The woman tells him that Tamahira Cafe is at the summit of the mountain, so he'll have to climb. However, she also says that the owner's daughter had some tragedy, and the cafe has been closed for about a month, so it might just be a wasted effort. Saku says he'll just think of it as training and go up anyway. The woman feels envious, wishing her own kid had half his energy. Saku notices an incoming man and covers his nose because of the strong stench. The man is Kaito, the woman's useless son, who does nothing except take pictures all day. Saku is bothered by the loud scolding and the suitcases being thrown around, but he dodges them easily. The woman keeps yelling at her son to get a job, but Kaito does not say a word, grabs his bags and leaves. Saku checks his phone and finds that Kaito matches the photographer for his next assignment. Rain pours down that night, but Saku does not stop following the stinky man. Kaito trips and begs for help as Saku grabs him and drags him to the cafe. He throws Kaito into the building, where a memorial altar of a young woman stands. Kaito used to take secret photos of this girl, and not only look at them himself, but also sell them online for money. It was a hidden job for him. Kaito looks confused, so Saku reminds him that he secretly photographed her and leaked them online. She couldn't take it and ended her life. Kaito only served 3 months. Saku injects him with something while Kaito insists it wasn't his fault, thinking Saku is the woman's boyfriend. Kaito explains that he was just hired by her mother, the cafe owner, and she only told him to bring Kaito here. What happens after isn't his problem. The cafe owner appears, pale and quiet, and hands the payment to Saku without saying a word. He takes it silently and leaves, ignoring the shouting and screaming behind him. It is raining hard, but Saku puts on his hood and starts walking. He realizes the rain's getting worse, so he decides to head back. Luckily, the bus arrives just in time. When the door opens, a man jumps out, shouting happily that the door opened, like it is some kind of miracle. Saku thinks he is just weird and gets on the bus, but he is shocked to see there is no driver, even though an announcement says the bus is departing. The announcement on the bus keeps repeating for Saku to take a seat. Its voice gets colder and creepier with each repetition, but Saku still does not move. He is confused by the announcement and even more shocked that no one else seems to care that there is no driver. A bald man sitting nearby tells Saku to just do what the announcement says. Almost instantly, electricity shoots through Saku's feet, making his whole body jolt in pain. As stunned as he is, he quickly realizes that this must be some kind of punishment for not following instructions. He hurries to a seat, and the electric current suddenly stops, as if nothing had happened at all, like he just imagined it. Right then, a man steps forward, calling himself the leader and saying that this bus follows its own rules. Rules meant for those heading straight to death. He places a dagger near Saku's neck and tells him to obey his orders from now on. Saku trembles and agrees, saying he'll do whatever the man wants as long as he is not harmed. In reality, he is just pretending, trying to figure out what's really going on with this eerie bus. He quietly asks the bald man to explain things to him. The bald guy says that this bus travels through 2 worlds, the surface world and the underside. The surface is what normal people see, while the underside is a twisted dimension full of spirits, blood, and death. Once you board, you go stage by stage, deeper into the underside. Each stage is crawling with monsters, and you fight until you die. Everyone on this bus, he says, is running from some sin they committed in the surface world. Hearing that, Saku panics and insists he is just a regular university student. But then an old man sitting behind him speaks up, warning him not to trust the bald guy. He says he lived an honest life, doing farm work all his years, yet still got dragged onto this cursed bus. His wife adds that she was just following him and ended up chosen too. A young couple nearby snicker, gossiping that the university boy probably would not even survive the first stage. Saku stays silent, thinking about his own past. He admits to himself that he has taken lives, but only under commission, only criminals who escape justice. To him, that hardly counts as a sin deserving punishment. The bus keeps moving until the announcement declares the next stop, Lake Tsukiyomi. An old man suddenly panics, shouting that the monsters are coming. The bald guy punches him in the gut, drags him off the bus and says he'll make a perfect decoy. A girl appears beside Saku out of nowhere, warning him that anyone who blindly follows the leader's orders ends up as bait for clearing the stage. Saku acts scared, but inside he is planning how to look weak while still staying useful. The woman tells him to get off too, or he'll end up as nothing more than meat. Saku hesitates but suddenly freezes when he sees a pale, creepy hand pressed against the window. He yells about a ghost and runs out of the bus. The bald guy smirks and says this is just the beginning. The woman walks up to Saku, mocking him for being scared already, and asking if he is really a university boy. Saku shoots back, asking why it even matters to her. The question ticks her off, and she throws a punch at him. Saku dodges easily but pretends to trip and fall, apologizing quickly. The woman notices the missed hit but drops it, telling him to move if he does not want to be left behind. Meanwhile, the bald leader ties the old man upside down, waiting for the monsters to arrive. Another man from the group tells everyone that they will use the leader's explosives to blow up the monsters all at once and clear the stage. The old man, hanging helplessly, starts screaming that he does not want to die. He offers them as much money as they want, but the gang just laughs, saying money is useless in this world. The old farmer couple hesitates, tempted by the offer, but their fear wins out. Saku watches quietly, wondering if he should help, but a loud noise cuts through his thoughts. The farmer couple starts panicking as the monsters appear. The leader tosses explosives to everyone and orders them to throw them when the creatures get close. Saku catches one but does not fully understand how it is supposed to work. The monsters swarm the area, closing in on the hanging man. Suddenly, the old man's eyes widen. He recognizes one of them. The creature steps forward and calls itself Shimano, saying she has been waiting for him because he drained them of everything they had. The man stammers that they took their own lives, but Shimano does not care. She digs her claws deeper into his flesh as his screams echo through the dark. Shimano takes the blood of the old man and touches her face, changing half-side back to her beautiful human face. The old man keeps screaming that he did not hurt anyone, but Shimano reminds him that he drained the very last of their blood. The old man argues that all he drained was their money, and blood had nothing to do with it. He also complains that the monsters are not following any rules here because he never hurt anyone. However, Shimano tells him that after the factory explosion, the old man stole her husband's compensation money and drove him to take his own life. He might as well have drained their blood with his own hands. Shimano tears away one of his cheeks, determined to drain him dry in return. Soon the other monsters also start moving forward, and Shimano reminds the old man that there are other people who seek revenge from him as well. In his prime, the old man told his men to ignore the protesting workers demanding for money. However, he had to hit the brakes when the protesters blocked his way and demanded the compensation money after the factory explosion. The workers had to pay the medical bills, so they were in dire need of money. Shimano was one of them, who explained that her husband's body was burned over 70%, and she even had the medical certificate. However, the old man told her that the claim had already been filed, and they were waiting for company approval. Shimano begged that the hospital kept demanding payment, but the old man drove away mercilessly. She chased after him until she received a call from the hospital that her husband had swallowed a huge amount of painkillers at once and died. Shimano felt devastated, but she knew that it was all his fault. In the end, she also hanged herself. Now the monsters are tearing apart the old man, making him scream in agonizing pain. The old farmer is terrified at the scene, but his wife reminds him to keep quiet. Saku watches the whole thing, and assesses that the old man was really a sinner. He wonders if the story was not a lie after all. The bald leader prompts everyone to move, so they rush toward the monsters with their explosives. The gangster couple warns Saku to be careful because the blasts are crazy strong. They approach the swarm of monsters tearing at the old man and throw their explosives at them. It causes a huge blast, sending Saku tumbling backward. He coughs in the smoke but notices that a monster is lurking in his direction. He moves with the precision of an assassin and cuts the monster in several clean cuts with a dagger. However, Saku is disappointed because he thought the monster would be a lot tougher. The leader approaches, asking if Saku eliminated the monster. The baddie couple thinks it cannot be him because Saku is a pathetic-looking guy. Saku pretends to be super scared and explains that the monster that got caught in the blast just happened to fall there. The couple believes him and tells him to look for the farmer couple. Saku is surprised that they are going to help them, but the woman says he is too kind to think like that. Behind them, the leader evaluates the monster and realizes that a blast cannot split a monster so clean in half. The group looks around the area for 1 hour but still cannot find the farmer couple. The leader curses that the couple ditched the group. Saku thinks they may have gotten caught in the blasts, but the leader explains the rules that after eliminating the monsters, every survivor has to board the bus, otherwise it will not move. The door only opens once it counts as cleared. If it is still shut, it means they are alive, wandering off on their own. This means they have to search for them outside. The couple thinks it is a waste of time because the monsters keep respawning, and if they keep fighting, they will run out of stamina and weapons eventually. However, the leader tells them to quit yapping and start searching. So the group starts moving out of the outer wall of the area. Saku hears a loud sound, prompting the leader to explain that the monsters have respawned. It means another fight, so the gangsters are determined to teach the old couple a lesson when they find them. They move through the fields, but Saku questions if the stage really reset itself because it feels way too peaceful. However, the baddie couple warns him not to let his guard down. Further down the way, they come across an old man with an ox. The woman asks what he is staring at, and the man starts saying that an old couple showed up at his place earlier, saying that they were running from something and asking for food. The group immediately recognizes that's the couple they are looking for. The leader confirms if the couple called themselves Harimoto and asks where they are right now. The old man says that they are still at his place as they keep saying something about being separated from their group. As they follow the old man, he mentions that he does not buy that they were attacked by something unnatural. The leader just agrees that it was probably a bear. Saku, following quietly, notices that the village seems real, and the man looks human enough. He wonders what is going to happen next. The group follows the old man to an ordinary-looking house. However, Saku knows that according to the standards of this world, it is far too ordinary. The more normal it seems, the more suspicious it becomes. The baddie woman gets annoyed at a boy whistling at her, but the old man tells her not to mind it, saying the boy has been crazy for a long time. The woman warns him not to let that guy near her again, or she would not go easy next time. The old man shows them the way, where the Harimoto couple welcomes them with delight. The leader assumes there is nothing to worry about since two old geezers aren't much of a threat. The farmer couple expresses happiness at being reunited, pretending they were worried, even though they are the ones who ran away. The old man brings out hot dumplings and assures everyone there is no poison in them. The group is starving but still hesitates. The Hirimoto couple starts eating, saying the people of this village are all kind. A big fat guy also rushes for the dumplings, but the old man scolds him for his behavior. The fat boy still grabs them, while the old man explains that his son isn't the brightest since he takes after his mother. The rest of the group finally grabs their own dumplings, glad to be eating something other than canned food. Saku also takes one, thinking that if the old man's son is eating it, it should be safe enough. The leader says they will leave once they finish eating, but the old couple insists they stay the night, saying it'll get dark soon and there are wolves and bears outside, so it is safer to leave at noon the next day. As if on cue, a loud sound echoes, probably a bear's roar. Unexpectedly, the leader asks Saku what to do. Saku asks if they have enough ammo, because whether it is a bear or a monster, if they don't have enough firepower, they better stay the night. The leader agrees that they will stay. The leader and Saku sleep peacefully, while the couple enjoys their nightly activities. However, the couple gets startled by a shadow in the window, and rushes outside to catch the peeping Tom, who turns out to be the old man's fat son. The couple starts beating the guy for peeping, but the ugly mug still says the woman is beautiful. The tattoo guy is about to hit him more, but the old man steps in, telling him to send the lady back to her room, saying they can talk it out. The man follows the old man into a room where the old Harimoto couple is also present. The old man boldly declares that he wants to buy his girlfriend, while the Harimoto couple tries to convince him that a woman with tattoos can't be decent. They tell him to sell her off and use the money to get a better woman. The tattoo guy realizes the true purpose of these old folks for bringing them here. The old couple gets offended at the truth and starts gaslighting, saying he isn't a good person either. The old man keeps pushing, saying he should take the money while he can, since he is being hunted anyway. The tattoo guy tells him to shut up and crushes the cup in his hand. He turns to leave, but as soon as he opens the door, the fat boy appears with a stool and smacks it over his head. He keeps hitting the tattoo guy while the three time-worn freaks watch. The woman demands $200,000 for putting on a show in front of the leader tomorrow. The old man argues that the deal was for $150,000, but the Harimoto couple insists the leader is smart, and if he finds out, things will get ugly. After the bloodbath, the fat boy approaches the sleeping woman and climbs on her bed with a filthy grin. He puts a hand over her mouth so she can't scream in horror. The next day, the Harimoto couple knocks on the door in panic, saying the tattooed couple is gone. They complain to the leader that the couple ran off without saying anything. The leader believes they would not just run away, knowing the bus would not leave until everyone's together. Saku also thinks they must have gotten caught up in something. When they check the room, the old man says he should have kept a closer eye on his son, because the couple must have stormed off after the argument. He adds that there are bears outside, but the whole village is searching for them, so they will soon hear the news. As expected, a man runs toward them, saying they've found clothes left behind by wild animals. Saku recognizes the clothing and the blood on them. However, the leader grabs him by the collar and tells him to bow his head and pretend to search for clues. The leader realizes that this village is dangerous. If guests vanish, the first thing should be reporting to their companions, not rushing out to search. Saku concludes that they set this up from the start. The leader praises his brains and shares the next plan. Both of them realize that Lake Moon Village has no monsters, but the humans here are far scarier than any monsters. The Harimoto couple pretends to be sad, but the leader and Saku can tell that these folks seem to be siding with the villagers. The leader announces that they have no choice but to head back to the bus if the tattooed couple is really dead. However, the Harimoto couple wants to stay and search for the bodies for a few more days. Unexpectedly, Saku says he does not want to go back either. The leader grabs him by the collar, but Saku stays firm, saying he wants to live peacefully in this village if the alternative is fighting monsters. The leader throws him to the ground and steps on him, saying 2 people are dead here, so there is no point in staying. Saku argues that it only happened because they went into the village on their own. The leader asks the old couple, and they say they will stay in the village as well. Hearing this, the leader turns away and leaves. Later, Saku assures the 3 wrinklies that he'll take care of them from now on. They feel reassured and start saying they will find a decent woman for him to marry. Saku becomes so drunk that he starts snoring, making the old men laugh, saying it is like having a grandchild around. At midnight, Saku is sprawled on his bed but suddenly opens his eyes. Saku grabs a torch and starts searching. He can hear something from a cellar door, so he approaches it and knocks lightly. A muffled voice replies, so Saku grabs a crowbar and opens it from the inside. He is shocked to see that the tattoo girl is bound up inside the small space. She tries screaming for help, but Saku tells her to be quiet as he takes the tape from her face. He asks what happened to her as he unties her hands. The woman tells him that Harimoto and the others tried to sell her off to that crazy fat guy. Saku once again reminds her that she is being too loud, and places a hand over her mouth. The woman is surprised that a weak college student like him can be this strong. Saku asks about her boyfriend, but she assumes that he was with Saku and the leader. Saku realizes that all the clothes with bloodstains in the mountains were men's clothes. Suddenly, the old man peeks over the space, asking what is going on. Saku grabs the woman's neck and asks if he looks cooler than that tattooed guy. The old man comments that young people have no patience, and warns Saku that the woman has a fiery temper. Saku calls the old man father and assures him that he would not lose in strength. The woman becomes horrified that Saku is one of them, but he whispers to her to act along while he's simultaneously yelling at her to behave. The old man praises him, and tells him to do as he likes before he leaves. Saku apologizes, but the woman forgives him since he helped her out. Saku explains that the only way to leave this place is to escape at night. The woman suggests knocking out the old people to silence them, but Saku explains it is not that simple. This place is a recreation of a real-world village, and the villagers' unity is extremely strong. If they try to move during the day, every villager will turn against them. For them, being brought to an unfamiliar land is a big disadvantage. The woman asks the role of the leader and her boyfriend in this plan. Saku explains that at night, Harimoto and the others will be picked up by the leader, since they don't want to leave this place. As for her boyfriend, he is already done for. The woman becomes agitated and demands an explanation. Saku tells her that it was most likely the village chief and his family behind this, who probably tried to buy her from her boyfriend, failed, and took drastic measures. The woman curses Harimoto for their schemes, and can't believe that human trafficking is happening even in this world. She starts tearing her clothes, startles Saku, and explains that they need to make it look like an attack or it will be noticed. After a while, Saku leaves her disheveled. The old man praises him for going all out, so Saku tells him that he just wanted to show his son's face to the old man. As Saku strolls through the village, he comes across a woman screaming that she is not crazy. However, the villagers start beating her, saying that it is another episode. The woman starts crying, and Saku notices that her feet are chained on top of being confined in a small room. The villagers recognize Saku as the old man's adopted son, and also know that he bought the tattooed woman. They notice that he is not replying, so Saku pretends to brag about his possession. The villagers start laughing, but Saku just wants to end them all at that very moment. Later that night, the Harimoto couple brings out the food for dinner. Saku offers to help, but adds something to the meal as he carries it inside. The three wrinklies gather around to eat, but Saku tells them to start first, while he brings food to his brother and the woman. The three start eating right away and even praise Saku for being such a dutiful child. Soon their stomachs start hurting while their heads begin getting dizzy. Meanwhile, Saku and the woman sneak away. He tells her that the leader is waiting for them at the village entrance. The woman wants to set the whole place on fire before leaving, but Saku tells her that he already put the medicine the leader gave him into their food, so the oldies will die soon enough. The two run toward the outer wall, but the fat boy blocks them, ordering them not to take his wife away. He pushes Saku, and the fall makes a sound loud enough that the villagers wake up. The two sneaking individuals curse their luck. The ugly fatty leaps at Saku, demanding his wife, but the protagonist tackles him easily and throws him to the ground. He grabs the woman and starts running, but the villagers spot them escaping and give chase. Saku can't believe these are the same friendly people he met earlier. While they run, the woman trips and falls, begging Saku not to leave her alone. When the villagers get near, they find that she has disappeared completely, so they split up to search. Saku and the woman hide, but she bolts and runs around on her own. A villager finds her and screams for help, so Saku covers the woman's mouth and knocks her out. Other villagers begin searching for the source of the voice, so Saku tells the woman to hurry. As they flee, a cry for help stops them, and they turn back. Saku starts picking the lock while the woman questions how a college student knows such a trick. Both enter the room, but the woman covers her nose because of the stench. Inside, they find a woman curled in a corner, muttering that she will never escape. Saku consoles her, reminding her that she called him for help earlier. The woman insists he is not from this village, and reveals she is not from here either. She identifies herself as Maiko Ida, a graduate student at Nanka University. She breaks down saying she can't escape anymore, and begs him to tell her father. Saku understands and even gives her a lighter when she asks for it. The two prepare to leave while Maiko lights a fire and stares at the flame like it is her only hope. The leader waits for them at the village entrance, armed and ready. The villagers spot them fleeing, so the other two draw their guns and tell Saku to stay hidden, assuming he can't use one. The woman charges the villagers, but the moment the guns are revealed, the villagers panic and scatter. The leader asks about the progress, and Saku informs him that Harimoto and the others will die soon. The woman thinks it serves the old couple right. If they love staying here so much, they can stay here for life. The villagers swagger back, boasting they will cut off her limbs once they find the tattooed woman, but they are shocked to find the locked door open. They rush forward to capture Maiko, and are startled by the fire. They try to put it out, but it spreads fast. Soon the blaze grows massive and engulfs the villagers alive. Maiko watches the whole scene, satisfied at the end of such a ruthless village. On the outskirts, the three wrinklies crawl in agony, but the flames reach them and they can do nothing but beg for help. The houses burn down, boulders fall on top of them, and after they die their souls leave their bodies and reach the bus where Saku and the others sit. They are already dead, but their past broadcasts on the bus. It turns out the Harimoto couple used to sell young girls to old disfigured men. Saku realizes humans can be far scarier than ghosts. Next, the leader explains that this is the clearing point for Kazuki Station. If Saku's points surpass his, Saku will become the leader. They find it odd that a college student who can't even use a gun has 50 points. Saku asks if there are points not shown to everyone. The leader, Toji, says hidden points will reveal themselves soon in front of him. Total stage points are the sum of public and hidden points. The maximum is 100 points, and only doing something special gains extra points. Eri reminds them hidden points are rare, and basically irrelevant for a college student like Saku. She says points can be exchanged for supplies. They entrust public points to the leader to manage. Toji gets 20 injury points, Eri 30, and Saku receives 50. He figures it is probably for the damage he caused at the beginning. Eri approaches, assuming he has the lowest points. Saku plays along and tells them to take care of things. He wonders how to spend his points and notices an option. 10 points grant 2 minutes of contact with the real world under a random occurrence. Saku confirms that everything happening in this underworld is a reflection of the real world, so the leader repeats that the ones who end up here are those who committed crimes on the other side. Eri remarks that everyone here will be punished, and mockingly asks if Saku is scared. However, Saku ignores her and says he wants to make a deal. Eri looks at him like he has lost his mind, unable to believe that he actually wants to talk to someone in the real world for 2 minutes. She reminds him that they can't ask anyone for help from outside. Even Toji agrees, saying that he tried before but no one outside could ever locate this bus. Still, Saku stubbornly uses his points to contact Maiko Ida's parents. The call connects, but the parents instantly think it is a prank. Saku introduces himself as Maiko's friend, but they don't believe him since she disappeared 10 years ago. He tells them that she can't come back anymore, and asks if they still remember the fire on Mount Unzo 3 years ago. He explains that it happened deep in the mountains, where there were no precautionary measures, and in the end, everyone in the village died. The truth, he reveals, is that the villagers were involved in human trafficking. The place was so poor that they thought they could buy college students for just a few 100,000 yen. The couple finally connects the dots and realizes Maiko started the fire, but they still ask why she can't come back. Saku solemnly replies that she burned to death along with the village. He passes on her last words, saying she loved her parents and wished to be their daughter again in her next life. The old couple breaks down, their tears a mix of pain and relief, finally getting the closure that their daughter is truly gone. They reminisce about her cheerful life and tragic death. As the call disconnects, Saku wonders how much longer things like this will keep happening in the real world, and if the only way to stop them is from this side. Eri immediately calls him dumb for wasting his public points on anything other than supplies. She mocks him for being such a nerd who studies too much that he ends up screwing up when it really matters. Saku grits his teeth and snaps back, asking if she really has zero compassion after seeing those real-life scenes play out on stage. Eri glares, assuming he is acting all high and mighty. Toji steps in and tells them to chill out and not fight among themselves. But Eri isn't done. She suggests they use an idiot like Saku, who can't even handle a gun, as bait next time. Toji reminds her that they cleared the last stage thanks to Saku's guts and brains. Unlike her, he actually did something useful. He tells them to save their energy since the next stage is about to start. He also orders them to buy only the bare minimum weapons and survival gear with their public points. Yuri feels smug for secretly buying food with her private points and takes another jab at Saku, saying he pulled a classic college student move by wasting his points for someone else's sake. Saku hits back, asking if she failed her entrance exam since she keeps bringing up that he is a student, then adds that he spent his points exactly how he wanted. That ticks her off, and she is about to swing at him when Toji cuts in again, telling them to stop because they've reached the next stage. The bus halts right in front of Seika High School. As they step out, Toji informs them that each of them has a bag with a gun, 6 bullets and a folding knife. They spot someone approaching and immediately brace themselves, ready to take down whatever monster is coming. But instead, it is just a totally normal-looking guy, telling them that it is time for classes. The three freeze completely dumbfounded, but the man frowns at their blank faces. He scolds Saku for showing up in casual clothes, even though, ironically, Saku's the one dressed most appropriately among the three. Eri snickers, but the man turns to her next, telling her to wash off her tattoo sticker. She looks ready to argue, but Toji quietly stops her before she makes it worse. The trio follows the man inside and ends up in a classroom. Everything seems perfectly normal, but Eri leans over to remind Saku that the last village looked normal too, so they'd better stay on guard. 3 empty seats sit in the classroom, and they each take one, trying to blend in like regular students. Saku and Toji flip open their textbooks and find them completely normal, but Eri trembles. Her book is covered, page after page, with the word die. The letters are written in deep crimson, like blood, and her hands start trembling as her blood runs cold. When school ends, Toji concludes that this stage is clearly targeting Eri. That's why only her textbook is cursed. Eri, now panicking, reminds them that they've been teammates for a long time and begs them not to use her as bait. She insists she is more useful than the college boy, but Saku calmly says that loyal allies are worth more than combat strength. They are here because of something she did in the real world, something she never made up for. Eri's face turns pale, but she still insists she did nothing wrong. Saku advises her that she will never clear this stage unless she admits it. Even the leader coldly tells her to survive on her own. Eri panics, saying that Toji helped her in the last stage, but Toji replies that if it weren't for the rule forcing them to stay together, he would not have saved her then either. In this world, survival is all that matters. When Eri grabs his shirt, desperate to stop him, Saku steps in and asks her to tell them the truth so they can help her. Still stubborn, Eri glares and demands why the college boy isn't the target here. Since this is a school, Saku looks at her with icy eyes, asking for an explanation about her notebook. He says humans are dumb creatures who never want to admit their sins. Even Toji adds that if she were really innocent, she would not be here in the first place. Eri's face twists with fear and denial as she finally mutters that it wasn't her fault. Eri walks into the school just like everyone else, but her expression gives everything away. She is terrified. Still, she keeps trying to convince herself that she isn't the target this time. Everyone here looks normal, so maybe this whole stage is meant for someone else. Maybe those other two. But before she can finish that thought, a hand grabs her from behind. Her heart nearly jumps out of her chest, only to realize it is just a friendly girl reminding her about the gathering tonight. Eri looks confused until the others join in, reminding her of their weekly ghost story event every Wednesday. They hype it up, promising snacks and fun, before playfully pushing her forward to join them. Later that night in the dorm, everyone sorts through their things and gathers in the middle of the room. Eri stays on her bed, distant and silent. When the girls ask her to join, she says she wants to sleep early since she isn't feeling well. They don't push her, but they convince her to at least listen to one ghost story before calling it a night. The story is about a second-year student from Class 3 who supposedly wanders the hallway at night. It is said she took her own life there, and since then both teachers and students avoid that corridor completely. One girl asks how the storyteller even knows those details when it is something no one is supposed to talk about at school. The girl smirks, saying her uncle is the vice principal, so she knows everything. She goes on to describe how the dead girl's body had knife wounds all over, even before she died. That apparently is why her spirit came back. The others shiver, realizing she must have been bullied, and they wonder who did it. The thought that the culprit could be someone from their own school gives them chills. Everyone knows that the ghost of someone who died tragically is always the scariest kind. Eri freezes. Her face turns pale as she realizes who they are talking about. Memories she buried deep start crawling back up, piece by piece. She finally remembers what she has done. It starts with several girls cornering a classmate and dumping dirty water on her. And of course, the ringleader is Eri. She yanks the poor girl's hair and tells her she will forgive her, only if she spins around 3 times and barks like a dog. The girl refuses to do something so humiliating, and that does not sit well with Eri at all. She pulls out a sharp razor and presses it close to the girl's face. The others panic, begging her to stop, but Eri's cold glare shuts them up instantly. Even then, her so-called friends try to reason with her, saying they've already scared the girl enough to keep her away from Tiger. But Eri clenches her teeth, holding the razor toward them, and asking if that's really their final decision. When they refuse to take part, she snaps and drives them away. The bullied girl tries to run too, but Eri catches her and slashes her arm, drawing blood. She grabs her by the hair, ready to do more, but the girl warns that she will tell the teachers and the police. Eri laughs cruelly, saying her father is the chairman of the Keiko group, so no one will listen. She mocks the girl's deaf parents too. That's when the girl finally snaps. Fueled by rage, she shoves Eri, and in the scuffle, the razor nicks Eri's arm. Seeing her own blood, Eri loses it completely, and starts beating the girl. Just then, a teacher bursts in and stops the fight. But Eri twists the story around, blaming everything on the other girl. Both of them are taken to the principal's office and told to write a reflection essay 20,000 words long. The bullied girl tries to explain that she hasn't done anything wrong, but the principal blames her anyway, accusing her of being at fault for being bullied. When their parents arrive, the difference is stark. The principal greets Eri's father with a polite smile, but the man looks annoyed, telling her to hurry since he does not have time for nonsense. Meanwhile, the other girl signs to her mother that she is fine. Instead of remorse, Eri looks at them with disgust, claiming they must have done something filthy to earn their money to raise a daughter. Suddenly, Eri's father grabs her by the collar, furious that she has caused trouble. He announces that she would not be staying in the dorm anymore, and that he'll discipline her properly at home. Meanwhile, the principal expels the bullied girl without hesitation, claiming she injured a classmate with a knife. The girl protests that it isn't fair, but the principal coldly explains that Erie's parents are the chairpersons of the Keiko group, so there is nothing to be done. She tells her it is for her own good, and instructs her to explain it to her mother in sign language. On the way home, Erie's father keeps scolding her, saying she will ruin the company's reputation if word gets out. Still, Erie refuses to admit that she bullied anyone. Furious, her father yanks her hair and says she has been worthless since the day she and her mother came into his life. Erie snaps back that only her little sister, the daughter he had with his new wife, seems to matter to him. That hits a nerve. He slaps her across the face, saying that if it weren't for his reputation, he'd make her apologize in front of the whole school. Erie touches her cheek, trembling, muttering that everything he does is just for show anyway, fake concern to protect his company's image, not her. The next day, the girl arrives at school just like usual, trying to act normal, but before she can even take a breath, Erie and her minions drag her into a corner. Erie glares at her with that same twisted smirk and says it isn't over yet. The girl reminds her that the teachers and her parents already know about the bullying, but Erie just laughs it off, smug as ever. She asks if the girl really thinks any of that matters, pulling out the razor once again like it is some kind of toy. The girl threatens to report her, but Erie stays confident, saying that even if it turns into a huge commotion, all she'd need to do is show up at the school board. She reminds her that her father is the chairman of a prestigious company. There are endless ways for him to force her into voluntary withdrawal. Erie leans in close and whispers that if that happens, she will be stuck living a miserable life with her deaf mother. The girl's face drains of color as Erie presses the razor against her cheek, and a thin line of blood begins to drip down. During class, a boy sitting near the girl notices something off. He asks if she has caught a cold since she is wearing long sleeves despite the heat. He even offers her some cold medicine, but she quietly insists she is fine. Just then, Erie and her crew appear at the classroom door, knocking lightly but with that same sinister look. They motion for her to come out. The girl trembles, her hands shaking, but she still stands up and follows them quietly out of the class, while her deskmate watches the whole thing, worry written all over his face. Time passes and the boy starts to grow anxious. She has been gone for a while. When she finally returns, she looks completely beaten up, her hair messy, her uniform wrinkled, her eyes dull. She hides behind her textbook, hoping no one will notice, but the boy can't help asking if those girls did this to her. He suggests she tell the teacher, but she quickly brushes it off, saying she accidentally scratched herself. Before he can push further, the teacher throws a piece of chalk at him for whispering, and the class bursts into laughter. The boy stands to explain, but the girl interrupts, saying she just felt a bit sick and had gone to get some medicine. Still, the boy gently tells her that if she is feeling unwell, she should go to the infirmary, instead of trying to handle it on her own. After school, the girl walks home, exhaustion and sadness etched across her innocent face, but her rough day does not end there. Out of nowhere, a blonde boy, Erie's future boyfriend, grabs her and drags her with him, saying it has been a while. Snapping from sheer frustration, the girl slaps him hard across the face. That only enrages him more. He grabs her by the neck, tightening his grip. Just then, her deskmate rushes in, shoving the guy away and telling him to never lay a hand on a woman again. The blonde boy threatens him, but the deskmate warns back that he is actually looking forward to his arrest. He then takes the girl away, telling her that from now on, she has to fight back if anyone tries to hurt her again. Later, Erie meets the blonde guy, who's still fuming. She stands in front of him, calm and confident, telling him to give up on the girl because she already has a boyfriend now. He sneers, asking if she is here to mock him, but Erie just smiles coldly, saying she will avenge him. She reminds him that the school's rules clearly state that romantic relationships between students are grounds for expulsion. Then she reveals her ace, a photograph of the girl and her deskmate standing close together. The next day, the girl's mother demands an explanation at school. The principal explains that as a college prep institution, they don't allow romantic relationships between students. She claims to feel sorry for the girl since she has excellent grades and a tuition waiver, but points out that her performance has been slipping this semester. The principal also adds that the boy has already been expelled. The girl protests, saying he wasn't involved at all, but the principal explains that they have the photo evidence that was sent anonymously. She clarifies that she might have been able to save the girl if she was the only one who received the photo. However, the girl has had enough, so she runs away from the office. Later, the students are chattering about the usual school activity when the screams of someone dying echo throughout the building as the students stumble away from the hanging figure. Meanwhile, Erie is off deciding whether to go tease her future boyfriend again when she hears the terrified screams of her minions. She turns around confused until her heart stops cold. There it is, the hanging blue-tinted body of the girl she tormented, swaying slightly in the air. Now in the present, Rary tries to convince herself that none of it was her fault. She blames the principal, the homeroom teacher, even the girl's deaf mother, anyone but herself. But when the ghost of that same girl appears before her, Rary's bravado shatters completely. Her face drains of all color in front of the horrors of her past. Erie clutches her head, trembling and screaming, while the other girls burst into laughter. It was just a prank all along. Furious, she flips them off, cursing under her breath as she gets off the bed and storms out of the room. The girls snicker, whispering that she is totally lost it over a harmless joke. Running down the long, dim hallway, Eri mutters that everyone in this place has gone completely insane. She stops by the restroom, trying to calm herself down and convince her mind that this whole stage isn't targeting her. She insists she had nothing to do with the girl's death. It must be meant for Saku. Determined to clear her name, she decides to talk to the leader in the morning. But as she walks back, an eerie sound echoes through the hallway, the metallic scrape of a razor being pulled out. The dorm rooms suddenly vanish, leaving behind a single endless corridor. Panic kicks in. She sprints, but her foot catches, and she crashes to the ground just as the lights begin flickering out one by one. Trembling, she curls up, hugging herself tightly and shutting her eyes. Then come the slicing cuts, sharp, quick, and the warmth of blood dripping down her arms. Her scream rips through the silence, startling her roommates who wonder how she could be this terrified over just a prank. Eri keeps screaming, shouting that she did not cause anyone's death, that she is innocent. But her roommates, now with ghostly twisted faces, stare at her and ask if that's really true. Her mind blanks and she collapses on the spot. When she wakes up the next morning, she is back in her bed. For a second she thinks it was all a nightmare, until she sees the marks carved across her arms. Suddenly the door slams open. Her father storms in with the principal, furious that she did not wake up even after her roommates tried. Eri tries to explain that no one woke her up, but the principal insists that 3 people couldn't all be lying. Her father's temper flares, and the sound of a slap echoes through the room. Later during PE, her father berates her again, accusing her of hurting herself just to disgrace their family. He declares he is taking her home immediately. When Eri snaps back in frustration, he silences her, saying she has humiliated them enough, and that if this mess hits the news, it'll destroy their reputation. The whole school watches as he drags her away, tension thick in the air. Her roommates whisper to the others that Eri screamed about a ghost last night and was covered in cuts when she came running back. They add that no matter how much they tried, she would not wake up in the morning. Some think the stress of studying has finally broken her, while others worry she might actually hurt them next. Watching the chaos unfold, Toji concludes that this stage is definitely aimed at Eri. Saku wonders what happens now that she has been taken home. Toji explains that the school always goes on break Saturday afternoon, and everyone's expected back in the dorms by Sunday. He scolds Saku for still not understanding how the rules work. Saku laughs awkwardly, admitting he is not as sharp as the leader. Toji warns him that mindset will get him eliminated, but Saku just shrugs, saying he'll manage somehow. After school, Toji checks in with Saku about the supplies and the location. Saku assures him that everything's packed in his bag and that he got the location when he told the teachers he needed to drop off some homework. The two finally arrive at a fancy mansion, though Toji suspects it is just another illusion crafted by the stage. As an attendant leads them inside, Eri suddenly appears, pounding on the glass in desperation, trying to get their attention. Eri keeps pounding on the glass desperately, but someone suddenly pulls the curtain over, cutting her off from view. Saku notes that she got hurt, though Toji does not seem surprised, saying that this stage is clearly targeting her in particular. Saku wonders if Eri also lived in a fancy villa with servants in real life, but Toji doubts it. The attendant politely tells them to take a seat before leaving to call the family head. Moments later, Eri's father arrives, his expression stern and composed. Saku introduces himself as Eri's classmate, explaining that he was asked by their teacher to bring her homework. The man looks shocked to see Toji as well, questioning his presence. Saku quickly clarifies that Toji might look rough around the edges, but his grades are solid, and he even serves as the class sports representative. The man clearly does not buy it, and simply tells them to hand over the homework before dismissing them. As they step outside, Toji mutters about how he could practically feel the guy's condescending attitude dripping off him. Saku agrees, saying maybe Eri was looking for a real family connection, because her father's coldness left her empty. But deep down, even he knows that the path Eri chose is her own, and there is no room left for sympathy now. Toji tells him they will make their move tonight, since they finally know Eri's location. Saku glances up at the curtained window one last time and silently decides to follow Toji's lead. When night falls, Toji climbs over the wall with slick ninja-like precision, while Saku tumbles clumsily behind him. Embarrassed, Saku promises he'll actually train next time when Toji calls him out for it. As they sneak further in, Toji tells Saku to stay outside and blow the whistle if anything happens. He plans to bring Eri out himself. Watching Toji's smooth movements as he scales the building, Saku realizes there is no way this guy is just an ordinary man. Suddenly, Saku hears shouting inside. Eri's father is scolding her for hanging out with unusual friends. Saku creeps closer and peers through the window, his stomach turning at what he sees. Eri's father grips a belt in his hand while Eri trembles like a leaf on the floor. He lashes out at her for skipping school, getting tattoos and being a disgrace to the family, striking her again and again. Then, in a fit of rage, he grabs her by the neck, hissing that she should go back to her drug addict father if she wants to cause so much trouble. Eri thrashes and accidentally knocks a vase off the table. It shatters loudly against the floor. The noise draws Eri's mother and younger sister, who rush into the room. Her sister pleads with their father to stop and runs to help Eri, but Eri, shaking and furious, shoves her away, sending her crashing to the floor. Both parents immediately rush to the younger daughter's side, leaving Eri glaring at them with pure contempt. Her father snaps that she has no gratitude, especially after her sister got hurt trying to protect her. Her mother coldly adds that such behavior is expected from the daughter of an addict. With venom in her tone, Eri agrees mockingly, admitting that her sister is the golden child, while she is nothing but a failure, the drug addict's daughter. That stings the parents even more. They yell that they never asked her to score a recommendation to a top university like her sister, but at least she could stop interfering with their family business. The younger sister looks uneasy, worried about how bad things have gotten, but their mother quietly assures her she will talk to the father later, and ushers her out of the room. Watching all this from outside, Saku finally understands why Eri was so obsessed with the idea of him being a university student. Her sister was brilliant, adored and praised, while Eri was constantly overshadowed. Her rebellion was her only way to scream for attention. Just as this realization hits him, Saku hears a strange noise and looks back through the window. His eyes widen in horror. Eri has taken the life of her adoptive father using a shard from the broken vase. Laughing maniacally, she screams that she has finally gotten rid of him, even if it is only in this underworld. Then she bolts out of the mansion, leaving chaos behind. Saku rushes after her, and Toji quickly joins him. He tells Saku that Eri has completely lost it. Toji's tone is cold as he adds that she is either coming back to the bus with them or dying here. Her sanity does not even matter anymore. Suddenly, the ground beneath them turns unnaturally soft and Eri collapses into it. Saku and Toji get stuck too, struggling as the ground pulls them in. Saku, trying to stay calm, realizes it is like a swamp, a non-Newtonian fluid. Once trapped, it is almost impossible to get out. He shouts for Toji to lie flat on his back to spread his weight and move slowly. Toji does as told, and it works. Impressed, he asks how Saku even knows that trick. Saku mutters that he learned it in a university class. They both manage to climb back up onto the wall and call out to Eri, telling her to move slowly toward them. But before she can reach them, dark, ghostly hands emerge from the soft ground and drag her down screaming. She begs for help, clawing at the surface, but it is no use. This is the price for her sins. She is gone. A single arm bursts from the ground one last time, as if cursing her fate, commanding Eri to spend all eternity in hell along with them. Two pairs of arms grab Eri, dragging her down as they demand she be swallowed by the abyss together. She sinks deeper and deeper into the ground. On the other hand, Saku and Toji make a run for it, because the moment the monster's wish was fulfilled, this dimension began to tear itself apart. They need to reach the bus immediately, or the collapse will take them down too. Both know that even a single misstep can cost them their lives. Luckily, the bus is right in front of them, but the soft ground catches up, ready to engulf them. Toji uses this chance to step on Saku and skip forward, saying that selfishness is survival in this place. However, Saku refuses to stop, because of something so trivial. He pulls out a dagger, slashes his own arm, and jumps high enough to avoid the soft ground. He reaches the bus with a bleeding arm, leaving Toji surprised that he survived. Saku acts weak and says that luck was on his side today. Once seated inside the bus, Toji comments that this stage was a cakewalk compared to the last one, so the loot is garbage as well. When Saku replies that he is just glad to be breathing, Toji tells him that the value of resources becomes painfully clear after surviving a few of these stages. Saku notices that his wounds heal up after a single use of the point-purchased medicine. He realizes that Toji isn't exaggerating when he says supplies are the key to survival. He also realizes that he needs to keep Toji alive for the time being, since this man is the key to understanding the mechanics of this world. Toji continues explaining that the system autofills the empty slots at the next stop to maintain a minimum headcount. As if on cue, the bus stops for newcomers. Saku does not even realize when they left the other world, but he wonders if this is his chance to escape the bus. He argues with himself that Toji would have noticed if such an easy way out existed. Since Toji hasn't escaped, it means it is not that simple. Saku sits back down, thinking that he needs to observe for now, because he does not know what kind of penalty might strike if they break the rules. 3 new passengers board the bus. A middle-aged man named Tsutomu wonders where the bus is headed. His son Takuma complains about the detention center being in the middle of nowhere, while Ryo says that their time is too precious for the driver to stall here. Toji welcomes the 3 men and demands introductions. The 3 are surprised, but Toji still announces that he will be their leader starting today, and that anyone who disobeys will die. Takuma pulls his father to a seat, choosing to ignore the weird guy, but Ryo refuses to ride the same bus as the crazy Toji, and demands to get off. Toji advises him to sit tight or face a penalty. Ryo still asks the driver to let him off, but is shocked to find there is no driver at all. The announcement tells passengers to take their seats and warns about the penalty. Ryo stays standing and gets electrocuted on the spot. He asks for help, but Saku tells him that only the seats are safe from current, so he should sit unless he wants to get fried. Takuma feels lucky he sat down, while Tsutomu realizes that Toji isn't just some lunatic. As he reaches for a seat, Ryo and Takuma both ask about the bus. Toji decides to explain the rules of this world. The 3 newcomers are horrified after hearing everything. Toji says this is happening because every one of them is a sinner. Saku notes that Tsutomu and Takuma look like a normal father and son, but since they came from a detention center, even the decent-looking ones are dirty underneath. Everyone chosen to ride this bus is a sinner. Sustomu claims that he lived an honest life. Takuma says he saves lives as a doctor, and Ryo insists he has donated to schools as a businessman. The announcement informs them that the next stop is Nagake wetlands and orders the passengers to disembark. As everyone gets off, Saku breathes in the fresh air and thinks that this is a rare moment of peace, though he knows something dangerous must be lurking. As the group starts moving through the trees, they hear a beautiful singing voice. However, Saku senses that something is off for a voice like that to exist in mountains like these. Toji warns everyone to keep their guard up, reminding them that this world isn't some kind of game. Sutomu flinches when a thick fog suddenly rolls in, but Toji stays calm, pulling out a rope and telling them to clip it around their waists so they would not get separated. Everyone does as instructed, and they begin walking through the heavy mist. Out of nowhere, a loud thud echoes, and when they turn around they see Ryo sprawled on the ground, his leg bleeding. Saku quickly pulls out some medicine, but Ryo hesitates, complaining that the bottle does not even have a label. Saku shrugs, saying there are no doctors here anyway, and presses the slab over Ryo's wound. To everyone's shock, the injury heals instantly. Ryo stares in disbelief while Sutomu and Takumi are just as astonished. Toji, unfazed, tells them that if Ryo's already healed, they need to keep moving. They continue their trek, pausing only for a quick meal, but the path seems endless. The newcomers are exhausted to the point of collapse, and Ryo ends up tripping again. This time he spots a piece of cloth hanging from a small branch, and starts screaming about a ghost. The others roll their eyes, telling him to quit talking nonsense. There can't be any ghosts in broad daylight. But Ryo insists that they've passed this same place before, because this is exactly where he tripped earlier. That's when Saku and Toji realize they've been looping the same route. They decide to mark the path from now on to avoid circling endlessly. Toji suddenly grabs Ryo's blazer and strips it off him, making Ryo freak out about how his jacket costs 16 million yen. Without hesitation, Toji rips it into pieces and kicks Ryo away, snapping that his life better be worth more than 16 million. He declares that they will drop the shreds at intervals to mark their trail. Ryo keeps whining about his ruined jacket, and Saku casually mutters that for Ryo, fashion probably ranks above survival. Following through, they tie the torn pieces along the path as they move forward. The newcomers keep complaining about the fog, stopping whenever they feel drained. Saku notices Toji digging through his bag before announcing that they can't afford to stop now. They don't know what kind of monsters might be lurking. The others start demanding food, but Toji remains strict and tells them to keep pushing. Throughout the journey, a soft melody drifts through the fog, drawing them onward until they stumble upon a small village. Ryo and Takuma can't stop praising the angelic singing as they reach the entrance. There, a girl stands waiting. Her name is Haruka. She tells them it is safe to stay here if they've escaped to the backworld as well. Both Saku and Toji sense that something's off, but Sutomu, starving, asks Haruka for food while Ryo and Takuma gush over her beauty. The three newcomers thank her as they eagerly follow her deeper into the village. Saku tries to warn them, knowing all too well that newcomers to the backworld always get lulled into a false sense of peace. He also knows that once these fools realize there is no food or water, they will ditch the group. Still, if he and Toji go in too, they might be able to keep things under control. Toji seems to have the same thought, so they both step into the village after them. Inside what looks like a peaceful, ordinary place, the group is treated to a massive feast. The three newcomers devour everything like they haven't eaten in weeks, while Toji and Saku don't even touch their plates. Haruka notices and asks if the food isn't to their taste. Toji calmly replies that they are just too tired to eat. Hearing that, Haruka smiles and says rooms have already been prepared for refugees like them. Toji immediately excuses himself, heading for the room, and Saku follows. When Saku quietly asks if it is fine to leave the others behind, Toji answers that they can always catch the bus once these chickens get wiped out. Saku seems in agreement and walks off. Meanwhile, Ryo can't stop praising Haruka's beauty and her lovely voice, while Takuma mutters that he should stop drooling over a young woman. The jab hits a nerve, Ryo snaps, and soon the two are brawling like drunks. Sutomu tries to break them apart, but they completely ignore him. Haruka just watches, smiling with amusement, clearly enjoying the chaos. When Sutomu calls her out for encouraging this madness, Haruka coolly explains that it is their village custom. If two men fight over a woman, the winner gets to marry her. The fight escalates brutally. Sutomu suddenly grabs Ryo, yelling for Takuma to finish it. Takuma lands a savage punch right on Ryo's face, knocking him down. But Ryo, bloodied and furious, snatches a heavy plate from the table, charges forward and smashes it into Takuma's head. Blood gushes everywhere as Takuma collapses lifelessly. Haruka steps forward, gently wiping the blood and sweat off Ryo's face, and with a serene smile, declares that from today onward, he is her husband. Sutomu breaks down, crying for his son, as Haruka calmly leads Ryo away into the unknown. Takuma opens his eyes, making Sutomu genuinely happy, while Saku explains that he patched him up after he was hurt. Toji warns that every woman in this backworld is out for their lives. Takuma gets up, telling Toji not to badmouth Haruka, but the bald man just calls him an idiot. Tsutomu tells his son to calm down, and Saku tells Toji to cut him some slack since he just got rejected. Since Ryo followed Haruka, They decide to go find him. Toji comments that it would have saved them the trouble if that woman had finished Takuma off. Even Saku agrees this time, thinking that being half alive is more annoying since they will have to drag him to the bus anyway. They leave the room and enter the courtyard from earlier, where a bunch of women are cleaning the place. Saku and Toji put on their friendliest faces as they ask about Ryo. However, the women barely spare them a glance, replying that they weren't paying attention. A missing person is the most troublesome situation, so Toji curses the lovesick fool. The moon hangs high in the sky, but the group keeps asking the whole village about Ryo. They regroup to share that they found no clues. Tsutomu and Takuma suggest leaving him behind since he is a loose cannon who even punches teammates. Toji calls them idiots, while Saku explains that the bus would not leave unless all survivors are accounted for. The real problem is not knowing whether Ryo's dead or alive. The other two finally understand that they either have to find him or make sure he dies here, so Toji sarcastically praises them for finally using their brains. Saku suggests changing the way they ask around, saying the only method left is to ask about Haruka's whereabouts. Takuma and Tsutomu feel a small spark of joy when they realize Ryo fought only for a monster woman. However, Saku tells them to lend a hand if they are that happy. Takuma realizes they want to use him as bait, and Tsutomu stands in front of him, refusing to let his son do something dangerous. Saku has no choice but to look at Toji. The bald guy grabs Takuma and yanks him off the ground as Tsutomu flails around, asking him not to touch his son. Toji simply shows his powerful fist, and Takuma reluctantly agrees to help. Toji finally throws him back to the ground and tells him to get moving as Tsutomu helps his son. In the middle of the night, as fog covers the entire village, Takuma knocks on Haruka's door. She tells him to come in, but he peeks at his busmates before he steps inside. The sight of Haruka leaves him completely baffled, and he presents her the flowers he got for her. Haruka takes the flowers with delight, snips the stems, and arranges them in her hair. Takuma becomes mesmerized by her beauty and takes her hand like a lovesick fool. From outside, Toji and Saku can see that he has completely forgotten his job after being blinded by love. Haruka confesses that she likes Takuma so much that she could eat him up, literally. Her face twists back into its monstrous form as she bites into his shoulder. Takuma shoves her away, and once he realizes what's happening, he starts trembling, telling her to stay away from him before passing out on the spot. Outside, Tsutomu panics and asks the others to save Takuma, but Toji explains that they are doing this to learn her game, so charging in now would ruin everything. Saku warns them just in time to cover themselves as a loud explosion erupts and a lengthy monster bursts out of the room. Saku sharpens his gaze, realizing the monster has grabbed Takuma, and starts running after it. However, he is stopped by a group of villagers holding torches in their hands. The villagers with torches start closing in, surrounding the three completely. Tsutomu, confused and panicking, can't understand what's happening, so Toji scolds him for being an idiot. Saku steps in to explain that everyone here is trying to finish them off, and that these people are actually monsters in disguise. Toji asks Tsutomu if he can handle a gun while rummaging through his bag. Tsutomu questions why they even need one, but Saku replies that he can shoot since Toji taught him. Toji then tells Tsutomu that the only thing he can handle are explosives, and decides to give him a little demo. He throws one toward the villagers, and the explosion sends them flying in all directions. Tsutomu breaks down, crying that it is useless, but Toji snaps at him to shut up if he does not want to die. Then Tsutomu suddenly starts barfing at the gruesome sight of monster arms and legs scattered around. His horror only grows when he sees what he has just thrown up. Saku coldly explains that it is the meal they had for lunch, making Tsutomu realize that the delicious food was actually inedible junk crawling with bugs, and the wine Haruka sweetly poured for them was nothing but filthy water. Disgusted, he clutches his neck, but Toji grabs him roughly, refusing to let a weakling drag him down. The three start firing at the monsters and even toss explosives to blow them up, but the creatures keep crawling back up, zombie style, ready to attack again. Saku and Toji fire repeatedly, but they soon run out of ammo. Toji, fed up, grabs the useless and still panicking Tsutomu and hurls him straight toward the monsters to use him as bait. And as the creatures swarm and grab Tsutomu, Toji bolts, yelling at Saku to stop zoning out and move. Saku steels himself, reminding his conscience that only major criminals are chosen for this bus. Even the ones who seem harmless could be monsters in the real world, so they don't deserve sympathy. As the two sprint into the woods, they are swallowed by pitch darkness. They can't use any light, it'll just attract more monsters. Toji declares that he gets first priority on the medicine, since he is the leader, and starts digging through his bag. Saku only has a small scratch on his hand, but the pain stings badly, likely because of the poison. He knows Toji has similar wounds and has already used most of the medicine. As expected, there is barely any left to treat everything. When Toji asks about Saku's condition, he casually says it is just a scratch and wraps it up. Toji grunts that Saku's gotten tougher but warns that if the poison spreads, he'll be the next bait. Saku tells him to spare him since he is still useful, but Toji coldly reminds him that he'd better stay that way if he does not want to end up as bait. The two keep trekking, but there is still no sign of the other passengers. Saku realizes that their food ran out ages ago, and at this rate Toji will probably come for him next. Quietly, he pulls out his dagger, ready to act, but before he can move, both of them slip on the slope in the dark and tumble down to the bottom. Saku dislocates his arm and suffers a few small injuries, but he still forces himself to stand, unfazed by the pain. He picks up his dagger from the ground and explains that his adrenaline output is dozens of times higher than normal. The more the pain increases, the stronger he becomes. There is no way someone like Toji can take him down. But as Saku approaches Toji, something suddenly creeps up behind him. A monster suddenly lunges at Saku from behind, but he turns and stares at it coldly before slicing it clean in half with just his dagger. However, the creature begins reattaching its split body, and stands up again, making Saku realize that the only option now is to run. At that moment, Toji grabs onto Saku's leg, begging him not to leave him behind. Saku smirks, saying there is no way he could ever abandon their so-called leader. He starts dragging him away, and Toji finally realizes that Saku had this kind of strength all along. Saku runs through a cave, dragging Toji behind him as all sorts of twisted beings chase after them. When Toji asks what the plan is, Saku only reminds him that he was the one who begged not to be left behind. Of course, he is using him as perfect bait material. Suddenly, Saku hears Takuma's voice echoing from a large hole nearby. Both Takuma and Ryo are lying in a big nest next to a massive egg. Takuma cries out that he is going to die, but Saku advises him to keep quiet if he does not want to attract more monsters. Takuma keeps yelling for help, and Saku tells him to shut up, feeling irritated at the rule that all survivors must return to the bus. It is seriously starting to get on his nerves. Saku takes Toji's backpack, but Toji accuses him of stealing supplies. Saku explains that he is only going to use the rope to pull Takuma up since they still need him alive for the bus. He notes that Toji's attitude completely flipped after realizing his true power. Saku throws the rope down and tells Takuma to tie it around his waist. Ryo pleads not to be abandoned, but Takuma stomps on his hand. When Saku asks if there is someone else down there, Takuma lies, saying there is nobody. He is halfway up when a monster suddenly attacks. Takuma yells about it but narrowly dodges the hit. The monster's body is so elastic that it stretches all the way up to reach Saku, making him stumble back in surprise. Takuma shouts for Saku to pull him up, and Saku is actually helping, but before he can finish, a huge bird attacks. The creature reminds him of Haruka and the other monster villagers. When the bird shrieks, everyone realizes it is the same haunting cry they heard earlier in the forest. Saku ties the rope to a rock and tells Takuma to climb up on his own, since the birds are attacking. The useless guy turns pale, horrified at having to do something himself. Toji announces that they are out of bullets and explosives, pulling out a dagger but failing to do much against the onslaught. He starts yelling for help, but Saku is already busy fighting off the attacking bird. Amid the chaos, Saku slips and falls off the edge, barely managing to grab Takuma's foot. Instead of helping, Takuma starts kicking his hand with his free foot. Saku curses the ungrateful idiot, but Takuma insists that self-preservation comes first. Saku uses a burst of strength to leap up and cling to the steep slope. Takuma blames him for the monster attacks, but Saku snaps at him to shut up. Soon all the bird creatures start rushing toward a bright fire emanating from Haruka, transforming back into their human forms. As she approaches, Ryo desperately begs her for help, but Haruka only looks at him with pure contempt and kicks him away without hesitation. Ryo demands to know the reason for such behavior, but she coldly says it is all for revenge. Ryo looks confused at first, but his face soon twists in horror, as Haruka sprouts a pair of wings and her eyes start glowing a deep, menacing red. It all begins in a beautiful bird sanctuary, a peaceful place where rare species roam freely and safely. Humans are only allowed there to take photos, keeping their distance. The old professor explains to his students that this is home to an extremely rare protected species, the white-plumed red-crowned bird, commonly called the forgotten sorrow bird. The students admire its beauty, noting that it has a ruby-like gem on its head and a phoenix-like tail, just as they'd read in their textbooks. The professor goes on to explain that only about 1/30 of these birds are left in the world, and they exist solely in this sanctuary. Among the students, a young couple also visits to catch a glimpse of the birds. The boy quietly reminds his girlfriend to stay silent so they don't scare the creatures, and she gasps softly in response. But despite their caution, the birds suddenly take flight, not because of them, but because of the heavy machinery operating nearby. The professor and his students panic. This is a protected area, and the sound of construction is a huge violation. They rush toward the workers, trying to explain that this area is off limits. But the sleazy foreman only shrugs and tells them to talk to the higher-ups if they have complaints. He even mentions President Ryo, a well-known local businessman funding the operation. Alarmed, the professor immediately contacts the Ecological Protection Association to report the destruction, but he is stunned when they respond with vague excuses and talk of an unspoken understanding. Every attempt he makes to protest is shut down. They bluntly tell him that it is not a problem he can fix on his own. When the call ends, the professor's hands tremble in frustration. The students ask what they should do next, and he tells them to take photos and report everything to the authorities. As they start documenting the scene, the workers get aggressive and shove them aside. A scuffle breaks out, and it is clear that the students stand no chance against the rough laborers. Defeated and bruised, They sit down in despair. Meanwhile, the young couple quietly takes their pictures, deciding to post them online later instead of getting directly involved. Later that day, Rio scolds the worker responsible for allowing people to take photos. The worker tries to shift the blame to the old professor, claiming he was using dirty tricks, but Rio ignores his excuses completely. Bowing his head in fear, the worker begs for another chance. Rio calmly tells him that since the commotion has spread too far, someone must take responsibility, and that person will be him. The worker drops to his knees, terrified, saying he can't go to prison because harming a protected species is a serious crime. Rio assures him that he'll take care of his child, so the man can go to jail with peace of mind. After some hesitation, the worker agrees to take full responsibility. Once he is arrested, he testifies that the destruction of the sanctuary had nothing to do with President Rio, and begs for a chance to rebuild his life once released. Meanwhile, the old professor lies in a hospital bed when the news breaks. Hearing the report, he trembles with rage and sorrow, knowing full well who's truly responsible. The next announcement hits even harder. The white-plumed, red-crowned birds have gone extinct due to the destruction of their sanctuary. The students weep openly, while the professor's body finally gives in to the grief. He passes away quietly, unable to bear the sorrow. The students rush to call a doctor, but it is already too late. The doctor informs them that at his age, such emotional and physical stress left no room for recovery. The group mourns deeply, enraged that the one who caused all this still walks free. Back in his office, Rio's secretary reports the professor's death, but adds that one of the students keeps filing complaints. Rio coldly orders him to silence the student. The construction in the forest continues without pause, and even the workers there know that the man in jail was just a fall guy. One day, two workers suddenly notice something strange and flee the area in terror, as two pairs of hands emerge from the ground. The case of the double murder and body disposal at the construction site is quickly wrapped up by the authorities. The victims turn out to be graduate students, classmates, but this time Rio's secretary takes all the blame, claiming he acted alone. Meanwhile, Rio sits comfortably in his office, eyes fixed on the newspaper that proudly announces Japan's largest nature-themed park nearing completion. Rio thinks to himself that no one in this world hates money. With money comes power, and with power comes even more money. To him, sacrifices mean nothing, but all his arrogant beliefs crumble the moment he is confronted by the vengeful Haruka. Rio pleads that he does not want to die, but Haruka coldly reminds him that she and her friends also did not want to die, and he did not care back then either. He destroyed their sanctuary and hunted every last one of them just to make the area into legal hunting grounds. He once pulled the trigger because he held all the power, but now she is the one in control. Haruka calls out to her friends, and the birds gather around, clawing at Rio with their razor-sharp talons. Meanwhile, Kazuto, still climbing, feels relieved and even happy that the monster's attention has shifted to Rio. He assumes he'll be fine now since he wasn't Rio's ally and had no grudge with the birds. But Saku calls him an idiot, explaining that monsters don't understand reason or sides. Kazuto fires back, saying Saku has no right to talk when he is hanging on for dear life and could fall at any moment. As if on cue, Saku's hand slips, making Kazuto smugly repeat his own words. Since monsters don't understand reason, Saku better climb faster. He even says that he might help Saku out if they make him the next leader. Before he can finish laughing, Kazuto's face twists in shock as Saku suddenly leaps across the steep slope, scaling it like it is nothing. Saku does not bother replying, and keeps jumping upward until he reaches the top. Toji watches, stunned at Saku's physical abilities, but his awe quickly shifts to suspicion when Saku pulls out a small bottle of medicine. Toji assumes he stole it and lunges forward to grab it back, but Saku dodges easily and tells him he traded for it with his own points. The bald man frowns, insisting that someone with Saku's performance shouldn't have that many points. But Saku stays calm, saying that underestimating allies is even dumber than underestimating enemies. They are teammates for now, and both of them got poisoned. But Toji used up most of the medicine, while Saku survived thanks to his own stash. Toji still accuses him of stealing the antidote, but Saku tells him he is even dumber than he looks, and explains that he had 50 injury points. He spent 10 to make an outside call, and the rest to buy medicine and weapons, so he would not end up hurt or used as bait. Toji stands frozen, shocked that a rookie like Saku could have 50 injury points to begin with. But Saku grabs him by the collar and pulls him close, his eyes sharp and cold. This time he decides it is Toji's turn to experience what being bait really feels like. Toji is shocked by Saku's strength but still tries punching him. Saku easily blocks the punch with his hand and throws him over his shoulder. Toji says that he has been hiding his true power this whole time, but Saku tells him to go get a taste of being bait. Toji finally loses his composure as Saku drags him towards the bird nest. Kazuto finally makes it up, but the birds set him as their next target and start nipping at him. However, Saku drags and throws Toji right in the middle of them, so they start attacking him while Saku and Kazuto start running away. Toji desperately calls after them, but the birds tear him apart limb by limb. 3 years ago, he also tortured a man for interfering with their business. However, the man remained resolute, saying that all drug dealers should drop dead. Toji became furious after hearing that and started attacking the man with a sharp dagger. Now he has met the same fate as his previous wrongdoings. Haruka commands the birds to go after the two escaped humans, not letting a single one get away. Outside, Saku runs fast while Kazuto chases after him, asking him to wait. He even admits that Saku is the leader from now on since he is strong, but the newly appointed leader tells him to shut up. Saku turns his gaze towards the clear sky, from where the black birds emerge. Haruka also arrives at the scene, ordering the birds to finish off all humans. Kazuto explains that they did not do anything, but Saku repeats that reason does not work on monsters. Haruka says that human blood and flesh are nutritious and good for their species' prosperity. As Kazuto dashes away, the birds surround him completely, and he asks Saku to help him. However, Saku faces Haruka with a single dagger. The two start fighting, both fast and sharp as they cross each other. Saku's arm bleeds, but Haruka also has an injury on her shoulder as she admits that she never imagined he would be the most skilled among the humans. However, she says he is just a human, while the other world belongs to them. She leaps at Saku, saying that humans deserve to be destroyed and that humanity is what should perish the most. She places her strong claws on Saku's face and tells him to die. However, a loud noise makes the bird's feathers fly in the air because Saku has fired at her with a gun. She looks utterly confused, but Saku explains that the only thing he feared was insufficient firepower. He has been preparing for ages. His secretly bought weapons with private points finally come in handy. He shoots her again and throws explosives toward the other birds, frying them all in a big explosion. As he rushes out of the area, Kazuto joins him and asks where he is headed. Saku replies that it is the bus stop, but behind them the birds get up in a raging fire because humans can't hurt them in this back world. Saku runs towards the bus with all his might, while Kazuto, following behind, keeps yelling for help. Saku tells him to shut up and just run full speed, but Kazuto keeps yapping non-stop. Saku assures him that they will be safe once they get on the bus. However, Kazuto still worries that the bus might flip over. As the black birds close in, Saku pushes himself harder. The bus is right in front of him when the monstrous birds suddenly block their way. Saku leaps up to dodge an attack, but Haruka appears before him, determined to destroy all of humanity. Saku watches her sternly as she steps closer and launches her attack. He jumps again, takes out a sword behind her, and slashes her head off in one swift motion. Her body drops lifelessly, while her head rolls on the ground. Yet Haruka smugly says that she can't be finished. Saku thinks otherwise as he plunges the sword into her forehead. She screams as blood pours out like a fountain, but Saku keeps going. The birds attacking Kazuto turn into feathers as Saku finishes her off. Kazuto watches the scene and tries to act friendly with Saku, asking where he got the sword from. Saku explains that he traded it through the system's hidden collection. Kazuto realizes that Toji never mentioned it, and tells Saku that he is the leader now, since he wants to know about the rules of the backworld. However, when Saku does not respond, Kazuto gets pissed at his attitude. In frustration, he can only take it out on Haruka's already dead head. As soon as Kazuto steps into the bus, the announcement tells him to be seated as the bus is departing soon. At that moment, Kazuto realizes that his father hasn't boarded yet, and starts slamming the windows. Saku explains that the bus only departs once all survivors have boarded. Kazuto then connects the dots that his father is dead, and Saku tells him that the monsters tore his father apart. Kazuto loses it, shouting that they lived honest lives and don't deserve this. But Saku knows better. He knows everyone chosen for this bus committed crimes, and that includes him too. Suddenly, black smoke-like extensions start emerging in the bus. As soon as Saku notices them, he tells Kazuto it is the penalty for not sitting down. The shadow grabs Kazuto's neck and starts choking him before throwing him into a seat. Kazuto slams hard into it while Saku explains that they get punished if they don't follow the announcements. Kazuto starts crying that he is a doctor who saves lives, so it is unfair for him to be here. But Saku ignores him. Soon a screen appears before them, showing that Kazuto has 15 points while Saku has 80. Kazuto thinks it is unfair that he only got that many, but Saku reminds him that all he did was hit on girls and beg for his life, so he should be grateful he even got 15 points. Kazuto knows he can't do much with them, so he decides to give his points to Saku, like they did with Toji as a leader. However, Saku makes it clear that he does not want the points, and isn't becoming the leader. Kazuto can only grit his teeth at the outright refusal. Next, Saku receives 66 damage points, while Kazuto receives 40, which he decides to trade for food and medicine. The bus announces that they are entering a private space viewable only by survivors. Saku decides to stock up on food, medicine, and weapons, while Kazuto does not have that luxury, and can only grab the lowest grade stuff. All the supplies get loaded into the bag. Kazuto is surprised that such a small bag can fit everything, and Saku explains that backworld bags are like multi-dimensional space. As the bus stops, Kazuto yells that they're out of the backworld, and starts slamming the windows, thinking they can get out now. Saku remembers he thought the same before and decides to use Kazuto as a test subject. He figures there must be a reason Toji never got off at bus stops despite being in the backworld longer. However, the bus gives off an eerie vibe as a long dark arm grabs Kazuto by the shoulder. The long dark arm grabs Kazuto's shoulder, leaving him terrified to see a hooded figure standing behind him. The hooded figure throws him across the seat, making Saku realize that Kazuto can't move or speak. He starts fearing if he would also be penalized for not stopping Kazuto. However, the hooded figure moves toward him and signals him to stay silent, leaving Saku petrified. When the hooded figure vanishes, Saku starts heaving from the pressure he felt before, while Kazuto remains out cold. The bus announces that new passengers are boarding as Toru and Hime step into the bus. Hime says she does not want to ride this rundown bus, but Toru explains that their driver couldn't come due to a landslide, and they have waited an hour for this bus, so they don't have any choice right now. Hime complains that this is Toru's fault for dragging her to a villa in the mountains, but he assures her that he will make it up to her when they get back. He offers a designer bag, but Hime says she will only accept it if it has really good leather. Toru agrees to her request but is shocked to see that there is no driver. He starts yelling about the self-driving bus, saying that their company has been researching self-driving vehicles, but even they are not ready to run a bus yet. Soon, the announcements start telling them to be seated, making both of them startled. Saku calmly tells them to sit down or they will regret it. Toru assumes he is threatening them, but Hime tells him not to fight since the bus has already started and they can't get off now. The environment of the bus changes, becoming darker than before. Toru is surprised while Hime wonders if they have entered a tunnel. Both are shocked to see a bright sun outside that changes the environment to crimson red. Panic strikes when their skin starts splitting, so Saku gives them the last warning to sit down. Toru thinks about it, grabs Hime, and throws her on a seat along with himself. The environment turns back to dark, and their skin heals, making them wonder if they were haunted. They are shocked when Saku tells them that this bus goes to the backworld. He explains that everyone on this bus bears a sin, so the backworld chooses them to make them pay for their crimes. Toru claims to be a well-known businessman who donates to charity all the time and says that he has not committed any crimes. Hime also tells them that she is not much of a famous actress but has never done anything bad. Saku knows that everyone says that in the start, but the reality differs very much. When the bus comes to a stop, Saku explains that they have arrived at the next stage. The bus announces that they have arrived at the jewelry country and orders them to disembark and enjoy sightseeing. Kazuto, now awake, holds his head, muttering that it is starting again. As the four get off the bus, they find rubies, diamonds, and everything in between, a paradise for jewelry lovers. Kazuto recognizes Hime and claims that he has seen her dramas, but she is even prettier in person. Seeing this, Saku wonders if the guy has already forgotten about what happened with Haruka. Hime hides beside Toru, who looks at Kazuto with a challenge in his eyes. Saku tells them not to waste their breath. As the couple turns around to leave, Kazuto becomes angry that Toru is acting high and mighty when he does not even know the rules. To Saku, however, they are all just dead weight. As the group moves forward, the ground beneath their feet vanishes suddenly, making everyone fall into a pit with sharp rocks. Saku takes out a rope dart mid-air to attach it to any rock around them. However, Kazuto grabs his leg, begging for help because he does not want to die. Saku thinks that having only weaklings here is a pain as he takes out a ball and throws it down to make a trampoline. He then kicks Kazuto, making him land safely along with the others. Toru notices he is bleeding a little while. Hime cries that they are going to die here. As Saku joins them, he asks if they have stolen jewels or done illegal mining before. Kazuto says he grew up in the countryside, studying hard, so he has never even seen a jewel. Toru claims he can buy all the jewelry he wants without stealing, and that he does not do mining business. Similarly, Hime says she has so much jewelry from advertisements that she could throw it away. Saku asks if they have committed any other crimes but gets no answer. Saku knows that all of them are dead weight, but they are still better than having no one. He has found a hidden rule from previous stages that at least one person must die in each stage. If all these weaklings die in this stage and strong people board before the next one, he will be in danger. Kazuto uncharacteristically smiles, saying their leader saved them. However, Saku reminds him that he is not doing the leader thing and should stop calling him that. Toru seems amused, but Kazuto says he does not care since Toru will die soon anyway. The two start arguing, making Saku exhausted by their stupidity. Hime suddenly touches him, asking if he will keep helping them after this. Saku tells her not to stand behind him, and shows the sword hidden in his sleeves. He explains that in this world he considers anyone behind him an enemy, so she should be careful not to get hurt accidentally. Hime promises to pay him money when they return to the real world if he saves her and Toru. When Saku refuses, she offers her body and grabs his hand to extend it toward her chest. Saku shoves her away, leaving Hime surprised that he does not want anything. As Saku turns around, she gets angry at him for acting so cool. In the next moment, sharp crystals break off the rocks and start showering over them. Saku notices them and starts dodging like everyone else, but the trampoline tears off, making them fall down. They all hit the ground but do not sustain any serious injuries since the ground is close. When they notice that Saku is nowhere to be found, Hime says there is no point in hoping because they cannot buy him no matter how much they pile up. Toru is surprised that there is a person in this world money cannot buy, but Kazuto says they do not even know if they will get out alive, so promising money is obviously useless. Hime feels confident that they are not dying in a place like this, but Kazuto decides not to bother with them anymore, and starts looking for Saku, wondering if the boy has abandoned them. All he finds are gray monsters coming towards them. As they are cornered, Kazuto calls for Saku, but no one comes for help as they are captured. Saku watches them and is glad that he moved right after landing, or he would have gotten caught as well. However, he is astonished that those dead weights just gave up without any resistance. The gray soldiers take them to a grand hall before a pink monster. Toru tries to throw weight around, but Kazuto tells him that monsters do not care. The pink monster scrutinizes them, but Toru and Hime sternly ask who he is, while Kazuto tells them to watch how they talk if they do not want to die. The pink monster welcomes them to the jewelry country, but Toru points out that this treatment is not exactly a welcome. So the monster says he will welcome them if they can answer his riddle. The monster grabs a crescent dagger and asks what is lighter than a jewel, so light that it lifts up the left side of a scale. Hime says she does not understand what he is saying, while Toru tells him to talk seriously. Only Kazuto tells both humans to take it seriously and think of an answer. The soldiers come closer with their weapons, making Hime and Toru realize that the monster will really harm them. The pink monster demands the answer to his riddle menacingly. He places the dagger against Hime's nape, wanting to hear her answer first. She replies she does not know, and blood starts pouring out of her nape. Toru panics that Hime can really die by the monster's hands, while Kazuto scrambles his head to find an answer to the riddle. The monster asks Hime one more time, and when she does not reply, he detaches her head in one swift motion of his crescent dagger. Toru stands frozen, completely shell-shocked that Hime actually died. Kazuto reminds him that this is exactly why he warned everyone not to get cocky in this twisted world. The pink monster steps toward Toru next, demanding the answer to his riddle. Saku, watching quietly from his hiding spot, decides it is time to make a move, since one person has already died, just as the hidden rule stated. He steps out, declaring that he knows the answer. The monster seems amused as Saku speaks confidently, saying he knows something lighter than jewel dust that disrupts the balance of the scales. The others stand on edge, tense and waiting in anticipation for what he'll say next. Saku glances at Himbai's lifeless body and replies that the answer is a sinner's wretched soul. Both Kazuto and Toru are stunned, believing that it can't possibly be a serious answer. But the pink monster stares him down and declares that Saku is correct. Kazuto and Toru are completely taken aback. Saku calmly explains that the very existence of this stage means someone committed a jewel-related crime. Since women tend to value jewels more than men, the culprit must have been Hime. As if on cue, her soul drifts out of her body and settles on one side of the scale, while Kazuto and Toru argue that this defies the laws of physics. The pink monster explains that the moment she committed the crime, her soul became the lightest and most wretched thing of all. Toru goes pale as realization hits him. It really was a jewel-related crime. Before he can recover, the crescent-shaped dagger tugs at his neck. He panics, asking why he is being targeted too. But the pink monster just smirks and asks the next riddle. He wants to know what's heavier than jewel dust, something that makes the left side of the scale drop and never rise again. Toru blurts out things like houses, cars, gold, and diamonds, but all his answers are wrong. The monster's weapon inches closer and Toru, terrified, begs Saku to help him. Without hesitation, Saku replies that the answer is a sinner's heavy sins. Instantly, several bodies buried under rubble appear on the other side of the scale, causing it to tilt violently. Saku notes that it is another correct answer, but also realizes something grim. The sins shown on the scale suggest that Hime alone isn't enough. The monster knows what really happened in the past. The pink creature spares Toru this time, but Saku keeps staring at him, making him squirm in discomfort. The monster then announces that the three humans are now his guests for answering correctly, and orders them to follow, promising they will be treated well. The trio hesitantly trails behind him, though Kazuto can't shake off the memory of Haruka using the same hospitality trick. Saku tells him it is good, he is finally being cautious for once. Toru lingers, staring at the scales until Kazuto calls him out. He flinches but keeps whatever he is thinking to himself. Later that night, under the high crescent moon, the three men find themselves seated separately at lavish tables in a grand room. None of them have a clue what's going on, but Saku advises them to stay quiet. Soon, three women make a dramatic entrance, dancing gracefully, and immediately catching Toru and Kazuto's attention. They look completely mesmerized until Saku coldly reminds them of Haruka, clearly unimpressed that they've already forgotten that lesson. The women place dishes before them, and the pink monster urges them to eat. But when Toru and Kazuto look down, they're shocked to see that the dishes are filled with stones. The monster insists they eat since they've come from far away. Toru awkwardly tries using a fork, but the food is solid rock, impossible to bite. The monster's smile fades into anger, accusing them of refusing to eat because they don't want to be friends. In a fit of rage, he decides to use them as sacrifices. As soldiers surround them, Kazuto demands to know why Saku isn't resisting, but Saku stays quiet, unreadable. The three are thrown into a dungeon, where only Kazuto and Toru panic and tremble. Kazuto desperately asks if there is anything they can do, but Saku steps forward, calm as ever, revealing that he has a plan. He brings up the mining site incident, but Toru nervously insists he does not know anything about it. Saku tells Toru that he is the only one connected to minerals among them. He says that maybe he can still be saved if he answers honestly, since the unspoken rule about one person dying in each stage has already been fulfilled. However, Toru still refuses to admit anything, so Kazuto tells him to just go ahead and die in that case. The two start arguing again, blaming each other and throwing insults back and forth. Saku sits down, exhausted, and advises them not to waste their energy since there is no food or water here. Kazuto realizes that he has not had any water since they got on the bus, but Toru points out that they can only swallow jewels in this place. Kazuto smirks, rummaging through his bag and pulling out food while explaining that those who clear stages can trade with points. Saku throws a tin of food toward Toru, saying it is in exchange for revealing the truth. Toru still acts innocent, so Saku asks him about his jewel-related crimes. Instead of answering, Toru says it could be one of them. But Saku clarifies that the scale had mining equipment on it, and a college student like him or a white-collar worker like Kazuo cannot be involved in such a business. Kazuo adds that in the real world, Toru is a top-class billionaire who makes the news, so it has to be him. Toru trembles, unable to respond, so Saku tells him to take his time, since this is a matter of life and death for him and all of them. Toru immediately opens the can and starts eating. Saku thinks to himself that he would never help someone like him, if it were not to keep himself alive. Kazuto loses patience and demands answers, but Toru still does not speak the truth, so Kazuto kicks his food away. Saku reaches his limit and throws Toru aside, saying that if being nice will not work, he will use force. Toru finally says he will tell the truth, and Saku tells him to hurry up since that is the only way they will be saved. Toru starts talking about the mine incident. It was a normal working mine where the workers were doing their duties. The heated environment made them think of the watermelons they used to enjoy cold and delicious. They talked about their dreams, wanting to save enough money to go back home and open a shop. Another said he would go back to his hometown once his kid graduated from college. In another corner, a manager pressured an engineer to hurry up with the equipment. The engineer said that they had not done the safety check, but the manager insisted that they had veteran workers so nothing would happen. He took the mining equipment away by force, so the engineer tried to call their boss to stop the operation. However, the call did not connect, and the faulty equipment caused a massive explosion that destroyed the workers. Now Toru says he could not answer the phone because Hime interfered. As Toru blames himself for the incident, Kazuto smirks that the man harmed dozens of people, but Saku's instincts tell him not to believe the story completely. Saku notices something and turns around to see the gray men demanding that anyone who is not a believer should leave. The three are startled at the words, but the ground beneath them suddenly opens up. The ground splits open beneath them, and the three plunge straight into it while Toru screams in panic, begging Saku to do something. They crash into the water, but the moment Toru surfaces, Kazuto goes off on him, furious for lying and dragging them into this nightmare. Meanwhile, Saku scrambles to his backpack, only to realize the unsealed food, water, and explosives are all soaked and useless now. Looking up toward the pink monster, he demands to know what they have to do to be let free. The creature simply tells them to figure out why they were brought here in the first place. Saku immediately knows what must be done. He storms toward Toru and lands a solid punch, demanding to know if he still would not come clean. But Toru, trembling and pale, insists he'll die here if he tells the truth. A short distance away, Kazuto catches sight of something drifting in the water. When he looks closer, his blood runs cold. It is Hime's corpse floating lifelessly. Toru freezes, horrified to see her body there, while Kazuto grabs Saku in shock. But then he notices something moving beneath the surface, and before he can react, Toru yells that something bit him. Bubbles rise in the water and Saku instantly hurls a knife at the spot. It hits something solid, and when Kazuto pinches his nose to dive in, Saku pulls out a strange bloated rat. He has never seen anything like it, and the creature's body seems to reek of poison. Dozens of red eyes suddenly glow from the edge of the water, more of the same rats watching them hungrily. In a heartbeat, they charge. Saku jumps into action, pressing Toru again about what he is hiding. Kazuto grabs Toru too, desperate for answers, but Toru yells that he can't talk. They will just sell him out if he does. One of the rats lunges at Kazuto, knocking him into the water while another bites into Saku's arm. He flings it off, but a burning pain spreads quickly from the wound. The poison is already working. Pushed past his limit, Saku snaps and seizes Toru, snarling if he really thinks he can survive without spilling the truth. He throws Toru toward the swarm, but instead of panicking, Toru's eyes go wide in delirium as he starts seeing rubies everywhere. He laughs like a man possessed, clutching at the glowing gems and babbling that he does not care how many people die. He can buy anyone with jewels. The rats swarm him, gnawing at his flesh, but he just clutches Hime's severed head and offers her a ruby with a crazed smile. Kazuto stares, realizing Toru's mind has completely snapped. Saku, however, stays focused, saying they still need to get the truth out of him. That's the hidden rule of this stage. They can't escape until they fulfill it. Kazuto is stunned since the system never mentioned anything like that, but Saku explains it is a trap meant to bait them. Of course, it would not be written out openly. He figured it out back when he saw that mysterious scale, and if his guess is right, making the sinner atone for his crimes will restore its balance. Kazuto finally connects the dots. There is no way out until that scale is balanced. Since Toru's already gone off the deep end, Saku decides to take a new approach. He uses his remaining points to purchase a bizarre eyeball from the system. Kazuto stares at it totally freaked out and asks what the hell it is. Saku says it is something he traded points for, explaining that you can still make exchanges during a stage if you have got enough. Kazuto grumbles that he does not even have close to that many points, but still wants to know about the creepy thing. Saku tells him it is a projector that can display memories. He grabs Toru, ties him up with a rope, and drags him closer. If Toru would not talk willingly, then they will drag the truth out of him by force, as Saku presses the eerie eyeball against Toru's head. The secretary informs Toru that after the explosion in the mine, the police and rescue teams have arrived, but no survivors have been confirmed yet. Toru explains the proper strategy. First, a statement, then an apology, followed by compensation. They will say they are doing everything they can for the rescue efforts. He decides to handle the victim's side himself, and rely on Congressman Shuto after that. After finishing his friendly call with Congressman Shuto, his secretary asks about the compensation pay date. Toru's tone turns cold, and the secretary reminds him that he was the one who told him to calculate the compensation amount. Toru declares that just because they calculated and published it does not mean they are going to pay it. The secretary feels sorry for the victims' families, but Toru tells him to give them his own salary, if he is so kind. He lights a cigar and comments that those bottom feeders knew the risks when they took the job. He adds that the company did all the safety procedures, but the workers were not following the manual. The secretary leaves defeated. All of this is revealed from Toru's memories through the creepy eye. Kazuto calls him a terrible villain for not compensating the families. Saku states that it was such a big incident that even he heard about it. The others must have also thought it was paid when the compensation details were released. Saku asks Toru if he does not feel guilty for destroying other people's families. Toru says he really regrets it, but Saku knows that he only regrets it because he does not want to die in the backworld. If he could get out, that regret would disappear too. Toru begs him to help, but Saku grabs his collar and shows the monster that they have revealed the truth. As soon as the pink monster acknowledges it, the ground beneath them starts shaking as a platform rises. Kazuto is happy that they can get out now, but to Saku, it does not seem that simple. The platform stops in front of the pink monster, and Saku asks if there are any other demands. The monster tells them to leave the sinner behind. Toru screams that he already admitted his crime, so he deserves another chance. Saku coldly asks if the dead people also get another chance to start over, and if the families he destroyed can become happy again. The monster grabs Toru and tells Saku and Kazuto that they will be free once the final ritual is over. They take Toru to a ritual altar and throw him into a well. Toru watches the jewels inside and loses his mind again. He starts gathering them, saying that he will build another mine and dig for more jewels. Kazuto points out that Toru has gone completely mad and will just be a dead weight even if they help him. Saku adds that even after falling this low, Toru still seeks jewels, a true embodiment of greed. On the other hand, Kazuto secretly feels relieved that they are abandoning Toru on this stage. Kazuto and Saku are surprised when the pink monster offers them jewels to judge Toru along with it. It threatens them to either judge or protect him. Kazuto chooses to judge him right away, but Saku understands that Toru should be judged for his actions while knowing that they who came to the back world are sinners as well. Everyone throws jewels at Toru, but his insanity is so deep that he enjoys the jewels thrown at him until he collapses. The pink monster turns away and tells them that they are free to leave, while Toru meets his end buried in the jewels he so loved. Kazuto and Saku return to the bus and receive their points for clearing the stage. Saku asks about Kazuto's sin, but Kazuto feels offended and says that he is an elite doctor who saves lives. As the bus stops, Congressman Shuto, Eiji, Mayu, and Yumi board it. Kazuto instantly recognizes the famous congressman, while Saku realizes that it is not over yet since Shuto is connected to Toru. According to the rules, new passengers are added to the bus. Shuto looks troubled. Eiji stays calm, while Yumi and Mayu are straight up terrified. Taking advantage of the moment, Kazuto confidently assures them that he'll protect them since he's already cleared 2 stages. They thank him for explaining the rules, unintentionally giving his ego an unnecessary boost. Meanwhile, Congressman Shuto starts banging on the windows, yelling that he's being trapped on this self-driving bus by his political opposition since the elections are near. The bus system immediately warns everyone not to cause a disturbance or a penalty will be imposed. As the atmosphere grows eerier, Kazuto steps up to stop Shuto before his antics drag them into another penalty. But Shuto shoves him aside, ticking Kazuto off. The two lock eyes in silent challenge, tension hanging heavy in the air, while Saku just stays quiet, watching. The bus enters a dark tunnel, and the lights go out. Suddenly, monstrous hands scrape against the windows, sending chills down everyone's spine and scaring Shuto out of his mind. Kazuto points out that it looked like a corpse hand and reminds him that, congressman or not, he still has to follow the rules here. A terrifying creature then appears behind Shuto, and just one look at it makes him pass out cold. Kazuto shrugs it off, thinking it's better this way than having the guy cause more chaos. Kazuto notices Seiku hasn't said a word since the new people arrived and asks him about it, but Seiku just says there's nothing to talk about. Quietly analyzing, Seiku figures the two women seem kind of scheming, but that's not much of an issue. The congressman is just putting on a front, but he'll probably be the first to mentally snap. The only odd one out is Eiji. He hasn't spoken a word and has just been silently observing since the start. When their eyes suddenly meet, Saku immediately senses that Eiji isn't an ordinary person. The bus finally halts, and as the girls grow scared, Kazuto tries to reassure them that they'll be fine if they just stick with him. Their stop is called the Mermaid Village. Kazuto explains to the girls that in the backworld, mermaids aren't the only things living here. There are monsters too. His bragging surprisingly works, and the girls tell him they wouldn't survive without him. Meanwhile, Saku splashes water on the unconscious Shuto to wake him up, and tells him they've arrived at the stage. Shuto, however, refuses to move, whining that he doesn't want to go somewhere so dangerous. Saku doesn't care for this dead weight, but since they need to sacrifice at least one sinner, a weak-willed guy like Shuto seems like the perfect pick. Kazuto suggests leaving him behind since he'll have to follow anyway once the penalty kicks in. Saku agrees, and they all head out, leaving Shuto alone. Shuto sighs in relief the moment they're gone, but then the ground beneath him starts shaking. A decayed hand bursts out of the dirt, sending him into absolute terror. Meanwhile, the rest of the group enters the village. There's no one around, just silence, and empty houses, while Kazuto keeps running his mouth about how he'll protect everyone. Saku and Eiji check out the buildings and realize they're made from seaside rocks. Suddenly, Shuto comes crashing into one of the walls Saku's been inspecting, shouting that a ghost hand dragged him all the way here. Right after that, the wall cracks open and some disgusting liquid seeps out, though it doesn't seem harmful, so the group decides to leave it alone. Kazuto announces that they need to find shelter before nightfall, reminding everyone that in the previous stage monsters appeared after dark. Saku lets him take charge since the guy's been acting like he knows everything after just 2 successful runs. They find an empty shed and go inside. Kazuto decides to split the team into 2 groups, one to collect firewood and start a fire, and the other to go fishing by the sea. The girls immediately choose to go with Kazuto, leaving Saku and Eiji to handle the firewood. Eiji notes that finding wood that'll burn in this humidity won't be easy, and Saku simply agrees, choosing to go along for now since he still can't figure out what kind of person Eiji really is. Kazuto and the girls head toward the sea to catch fish. Out of nowhere, Yumi screams that something's pulling her leg. Kazuto rushes over in panic, only to realize she's pranking him. They start splashing around, playing like kids, while Mayu sighs, wondering if Yumi ever gets tired of pulling the same trick. The idiots keep laughing, completely unaware that something is lurking just beneath the water's surface. The monster lurks in the water, but Kazuto and the girls remain completely oblivious, continuing to hunt for fish. Kazuto catches 2 fish, impressing the girls. Since both of them haven't done any work, they ask if he will share some food with them. Suddenly they hear Shuto yelling for help, so they rush back to the building. They come across Eiji and Saku, and Kazuto doesn't miss the chance to brag that he got some fish, asking about the firewood. Eiji explains that they couldn't find any dry wood because of the humidity. Mayu worries that it would be scary without fire at night, while Yumi scolds the 2 men for failing to bring firewood. Kazuto tells them not to say things like that since they are teammates. Saku decides to check on Shuto, and when they enter the building, Shuto is a trembling mess, yelling that there are people all over the wall. However, no one can see anything on the wall, so they wonder if the fat man has gone crazy. Eiji checks the walls and analyzes that the wall is normal. When Saku asks about what Shuto claimed, Eiji says he must be losing his mind. As night falls, Yumi scolds the 2 men again for not getting firewood, and announces that they won't get any food. Kazuto instantly comes to their defense, saying that if they lose teammates, they lose their chances, so they can't fight among themselves. The girls listen and stop fighting, but Saku still says he will go look for firewood, and begs them not to skip their meal. He drags Kazuto with him, saying he is scared to go alone. As the 2 leave the building, Kazuto asks if Saku wants him to protect him on a night like this. Saku says he will let Kazuto stand out in front of the girls. Kazuto thanks him, but Saku thinks he is a happy guy if he actually believed that. Saku hands him a lighter and explains that it is the supply he traded for. Burning leaves would be easier than searching for firewood with this lighter. However, Saku asks him to tell the others that Kazuto is the one who traded for it, as the women will respect him more that way. Saku plans to use this idiot to probe Eiji. The fog starts getting thicker, so they decide to head back quickly. As they move forward, 2 red eyes appear in the bushes. Saku notices something and turns back, but the eyes disappear. When they finally get back to the building, the girls claim they were anxious without Kazuto. It boosts his ego, and he happily shows the lighter he traded for. They start a campfire and cook the fish they caught earlier. Mayu worries that 3 fish for 6 people won't fill them up, but Yumi says that people who aren't useful don't get food. Eiji asks how they plan to divide the food, and Yumi says that only Kazuto and they get food, nobody else. Eiji points out that the leaves were collected by Saku and Kazuto, so by that logic Yumi and Mayu can only eat raw fish since they didn't help with the fire. Yumi asks Kazuto to say something, but he says to help each other since they are teammates and steps towards Shuto. Eiji reminds Kazuto that Shuto is the most worthless person, so he should get appropriate food. Kazuto agrees and throws 2 fish heads in front of Shuto. Seeing this, Saku realizes that Eiji understands everyone's personality and has control. He understands that Eiji is no ordinary person, and feels glad that he has been pretending to be weak. When everyone is done eating, Kazuto suggests keeping watch in pairs at night since they don't know what might happen. He pairs himself with Saku, while Eiji pairs with Shuto, thinking that he is better than someone troublesome. The 2 girls pair up but complain and ask Kazuto to join them. However, Kazuto explains that he and Saku have been partners the whole time, so it is easier to work together, and it's just watching inside the room. In truth, he understands that life is more important than women. Saku also thinks he is making a proper decision for once. At midnight, everyone falls asleep while the 2 girls keep watch. The 2 are not happy and believe that even Kazuto is unreliable. Suddenly some small stones fall from the wall, so Yumi goes to take a look. However, as she nears the wall, an eye peeks out of it. Seeing the 2 eyes peek out of the wall, the 2 girls shriek out. Shuto is terrified and cowers in a corner while the others stare at the scene in front of them. Kazuto hides behind Saku, but the protagonist himself looks appalled as he comments that the eyes are blinking. However, Eiji takes a dagger out and decides to check it out, making Saku believe that the man has some guts. A system window appears in front of Saku because he triggered the system when he tried to uncover Eiji's real identity. Moreover, only he can see it, making him believe that it is yet another rule of this world. The greedy system tells him that checking a member's identity will consume all his points. Saku is surprised, but he trades for info anyways because he can earn points later, but not knowing Eiji's identity can put them at risk. However, the lazy system tells him that he will receive the documents in 1 hour. Eiji rushes towards the eyes with his dagger and starts stabbing it with no mercy. The girls cover their noses because of the rotten spell and are horrified hearing the shrieks coming from the eyes. Shuto falls unconscious while Kazuto is almost there as he listens to the terrifying voice of sandpaper grinding together. Eiji keeps stabbing the eyes, not stopping even though a gooey material starts pouring out of it. Something finally emerges out of wall and yells about how hurting it is. The girls cover their noses in disgust while Eiji kicks the monstrous thing away and asks it questions while stepping on the thing. The entity screams out that he is a human. Eiji comments that it would be easy in that case, and steps on his neck. The entity screams in pain, but Eiji shows no mercy. As he asks about the other world, the entity has no idea what he is talking about, so Eiji concludes that it belongs to this side. He asks about the self-proclaimed man's appearance next. The thing tells him that it caught a strange disease which caused corals, barnacles and other sea parasites to grow on the body of the villagers. Eiji forces the thing to reveal that they eventually hardened and became part of the tough walls. The audience is shocked to find that the walls are made up of people, but Eiji remains cold and calm as he asks who is responsible for it. As soon as the thing reveals that it was done by mermaids, Eiji ends the thing with his dagger. The thing's head detaches, and the inside reveals that everything was made of corals and stuff. Saku thinks the thing was a victim, but Eiji says he only freed him from his sufferings by taking his life. Sensing the new hero in the group, the girls start gushing over Eiji now. Kazuto is not happy that he stole the spotlight, but Saku tells him to drop it since there's no way in hell that he can beat Eiji. Kazuto yells that the dead thing just moved, but it must be his imagination since the thing is creepy and disgusting, even in death. Everyone gathers around the campfire. Eiji announces that Saku and Kazuto will keep watch while the others take a rest to save some energy. Kazuto does not like that a newbie is bossing around, but Saku tells him to shut up and sleep. Once everyone falls asleep, Saku rummages through his bag and takes out the data on Eiji. As Saku looks at the papers, a bright light flashes out and starts projecting scenes in front of him. Eiji drives toward a large mansion, stopping right at its gate before entering a passcode at the entrance. As the door slides open, a girl's voice echoes for help. Her limbs are tied up and wounds cover her entire body. Eiji coldly tells her to stay quiet, assuring her that she won't feel a thing when he slits her throat first. When the girl keeps crying for help, Eiji's tone darkens as he glances at the torture tools behind him. The next moment is filled with nothing but blood and agony. He then moves on to his next target, approaching another woman with a charming smile. The woman's phone buzzes with a notification. Another body has been found at the base of the mountain. The report says all the victims were between 18 and 28, and each was missing a few parts. Eiji reminds her that they're eating, and suggests they talk about something more pleasant. He casually invites her over for a barbecue at his place over the weekend. The woman readily agrees, and Eiji adds that he's only missing one thing. When she offers to bring it, he replies that he's missing her as the hostess. The woman blushes, saying it's too early for that, but Eiji laughs and says he's not letting her go so easily since she's such a wonderful woman. She meets the same fate as the rest, with Eiji declaring that terror itself is the ultimate dessert. The police never find a single clue about him until the very end. After watching everything, Saku clenches his teeth, disgusted by what he's just seen. To the world, Eiji may seem successful and charming, but deep down he's nothing more than a thrill-seeking murderer. Saku decides he doesn't deserve to live, and slowly pulls out his dagger. Just as he's about to make a move, Eiji suddenly wakes up. He glances at his watch, realizing he's been asleep for 2.5 hours. He tells Saku that he should have woken him up, but Saku replies that he looked too peaceful to disturb. Eiji waves it off, saying Saku worries too much and should rest instead. He thanks him and lies back down on the ground. Saku knows that one person needs to be sacrificed in each stage, and starts wondering if keeping Eiji alive as a scapegoat might be the smarter move. The next morning, Eiji instructs everyone to go fishing to stock up on food while checking the village for anything suspicious. Kazuto grumbles, annoyed that Eiji is acting like the leader again, but Saku tells him to quit complaining. As they walk through the village, not a single soul is in sight. It makes sense if the mermaids really did appear here. Everyone must have run for their lives. Inside one of the empty houses, Saku notices a rock tumble over and realizes there are people hiding there. He worries that Eiji would eliminate them if he found out. Suddenly the group stops as a woman singing. Shudo starts acting like a total lunatic at the sound of the haunting melody. Everyone rushes toward the dancing Shudo, but their main focus shifts to the women in the water behind him. The women sing and start moving toward the group. Kazuto gushes over their beauty, but the two girls behind him insist they're staring at monsters. Saku also finds it strange when the women cheerfully sing and flaunt their beauty in odd poses. Kazuto practically drools at the sight, while Yumi and Mayu call them average. Kazuto thinks it's sad for them to stay underwater and tells them to come out. He steps into the water, drawn by the inviting women, but Saku grabs him and reminds him about Haruka. Kazuto snaps back to his senses, confused about stepping into the sea. Saku realizes something's off, and tells him to stuff paper into his ears. He grumbles that he doesn't want to babysit an idiot but needs someone to distract Eiji. On the other hand, Mayu and Yumi notice tails on the women and conclude they're monsters. The now crazed Shuto rushes into the sea. Saku tries to warn him, but Eiji stops him, saying they need a human sacrifice anyway, and a messed up person fits the bill. Shuto gets into the water, yelling about seeing angels. The women sing louder and surround him completely. One of them moves closer and opens her massive mouth, biting off his head in a single chomp. As the headless Shuto collapses, the other monsters feast on him, devouring every last bit. Mayu and Yumi are horrified, while Kazuto realizes he would have ended up the same if Saku hadn't stopped him. Unexpectedly, Saku ducks down, saying he's not good with gore. Kazuto cluelessly asks about clearing the stage at this point, and Saku glares at him in silence. Eiji watches the whole scene coldly, and steps forward, saying there's nothing scary about fish that can't crawl on land. Later, Kazuto places the gathered fruit in the middle, as Saku explains that they can only live off fruit since the mermaids guard the sea. Mayu looks uncomfortable, and Yumi complains that she won't have enough strength to fight like this. Unexpectedly, Kazuto snaps at them for whining when they haven't even gathered anything. Before the argument gets worse, Eiji steps forward and reminds Kazuto that they get points at each stage. When Kazuto confirms, Eiji tells him to split the points since everyone's starving. Kazuto argues that they earned those points by risking their lives, while Saku notes that Eiji is finally showing his true colors. As Kazuto keeps arguing, Eiji grabs his hand and twists it, threatening him to hand over the points if he doesn't want to get hurt. Kazuto still doesn't give in, insisting those points were earned through risking his life. The tension rises, but Saku grabs Eiji's hand, stopping him before it gets worse. Saku grabs Eiji's arm, trying to convince him not to hurt each other since they're teammates, but Eiji shoots back, telling Saku to give up his own points if that's the deal. Kazuto protests, clearly taken aback by the idea, but Saku surprisingly agrees, leaving Kazuto totally shocked by the decision. Eiji then lets go of Kazuto and waits as Saku opens up his status screen. Eiji finds it all mysterious, so Saku breaks it down. One has to clear at least one stage for the status screen to show up. When it pops up, it reveals that Saku has 0 points. He acts like he can't use any points because he lacks abilities, throwing a sharp glare at Kazuto. Kazuto instantly gets it. Saku had anticipated this move and spent all his points. Turns out it was just a lucky coincidence for Saku. Eiji stares at him unimpressed, while the girls openly call him useless. Maserdi then demands Kazuto to show his screen too. Kazuto protests, but Saku insists he hand it over for everyone's sake. Kazuto grudgingly opens his screen, revealing he's got 15 points. Acerty immediately uses all those points to trade for weapons and food. Kazuto protests about Acerty using his private points, but Acerty insists it's for the team's benefit, as he pulls out a few cans of food. Kazuto calls out Acerty for hoarding the food, and even the girls back him up this time. Eiji shrugs it off, saying they can't eat it all at once. Kazuto keeps pushing back, but when Eiji pulls out a knife, Saku steps in and orders Kazuto to go draw water, dragging him away with firm force. Once outside, Saku points out that Kazuto can't outmatch Eiji in strength or brains. Kazuto feels offended, but Saku tells him to check his wrist before arguing. He advises Kazuto to tough it out for now because Eiji is even more trouble than the former leader. The old leader's methods were rough but lacked smarts. Eiji, on the other hand, has been observing everyone from day one, figuring out their personalities to gain control. The two women on the team are also quite a headache. Basically, the whole squad is a pain. With all the facts laid bare, Kazuto starts acting buddy-buddy with Saku. The hero reassures him he won't let the coward die while they're teamed up. Teaming isn't exactly his vibe, but Saku knows he needs to adapt to survive, even if it means teaming with the idiot who trips over a rock and spills all the water. Kazuto promises to refill the bucket, but Saku tells him to just drop it. Back at the well, Saku tries pulling the bucket up, but suddenly it gets way too heavy, even for him. Out of nowhere, a siren bursts out of the well, opening her huge mouth to attack. Saku's reflexes kick in and he kicks her right back into the well. Kazuto can't believe that thing came out of fresh water, but Saku reminds him that common sense doesn't fly in this world. Without hesitation, Saku decides to chase after the monster, which has vanished under the water, clearly waiting for them to follow.